actually no Bill Gunter this morning. Fortunately, we do have a whiteboard to help fill his vacancy. Patrick is pumped. You're not tuning into the live video stream. If you haven't done it before, well, now you got a little extra incentive. Patrick got his NFL draft board, courtesy of Anthony from Kershaw, up and rolling. How did the delivery process end up finishing up, Patrick?
Pretty simple. I called them and they said, yeah, we're going to resend it out today. And I got it yesterday and set it up. It was very easy to set up. But now we're going to, I guess, have to work on this as a live stream because I can't really tell what can be seen, how big the writing needs to be. Seems like we're having a little glare issue. So we're going to have to work through this together. But I got a little pointer too, see? Like
oh my gosh. Wait a second. That's like
extendable.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It looks like a golf club to me, a golf club shaft.
Yeah, it kind of does.
I mean, because that's not a thin one. That's not as thin as I've seen a lot of these pointers. That's pretty hefty there.
I got to get the hang of. I think a lot of professors figure this out with online classes, but just not looking and over their shoulder being able to accurately point. I keep getting screwed up having to point the wrong direction because I realize it's the opposite side and I never know exactly how to do it. But we got a month to figure it out, just under a month.
I had no idea those pointers were still in business at all. I thought everything was, at least a laser pointer these days, but I just figured it would be digital.
I could have got a laser pointer. I was a little bummed because it has this point here, and I was really hoping it was touchscreen so I could use it for my laptop as well, but it's not touchscreen, unfortunately.
What do you mean it's not touchscreen? If you touch the screen, it's not going to do anything?
Yeah. I thought it almost looks like a stylus if you look at the end of it, and I got really excited for a while because then my laptop is touchscreen as well, but no dice.
So when you smack your laptop screen, it doesn't respond at all?
It does not respond at all.
Huh. Okay,
I got to use this little pen, stylus pen.
Oh, man. Ready to go. Chris and Jordan ready to go as well. Chris up with us on the Facebook live stream. Jordan on the YouTube live stream, pumped up. Good morning to you guys. And did you stay up late last night and watch the basketball? I did. I'm not sure it was worth it. Again, not close games, but certainly good stories. When you're talking about Baylor back in the Final Four for the first time since 1950 and what they've been all year long, I'm not disappointed to see them in the Final Four at all. They handle Arkansas. They get out to 15-3 lead, I think, and it was relatively comfortable, I think, most of the way for them. The other game was Houston back in the Final Four for the first time since Phi Slamma Jamma, which was just ahead of my time back in the day in 1984. Team Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, those guys. We've seen them now a couple of years in a row, I think, from the Gamecock perspective. So I'm not disappointed to see those guys. Not shocked as a number 2 seed to see them either. It's been a heck of a run. The Kelvin Sampson story is an interesting one. But to have those guys at half of the Final Four, to have the USC women tipping off the Final Four right now, I'm all invested in the NCAA tournament in this time in March. Patrick, what about yourself?
Yeah, it actually seems like I was actually not that excited for last night because I knew I was going to miss the late game because at work. But for some reason, I just was not fired up about that Houston-Oregon State game. I think it's because every time I watch Oregon State play, I'm just so unimpressed by them. I just did not think they were that good of a team. I think they really just got really lucky, even though they were kind of crushing teams in the tournament. But they were not an impressive regular season team, and just watching them, their point guard has hair like me, doesn't look like he should be out there at all, not doing anything. They had their 4, I think he was a 4, shot a jump shot from the elbow and released the ball as he was landing. I was like, who taught you how to shoot? You release at the highest point. I was just so bummed watching them. I felt like we deserved a much better game. This is why I'm on Bill's side when he starts arguing about we want Cinderellas at the beginning, but then we want the Blue Bloods later on. I wanted better competition. Houston, they're good, but they're also the first team to make a Final Four and play only double-digit seeded teams. So they've had literally the easiest run to the Final Four that anyone's ever had. So I am glad that we have Baylor, because Baylor Gonzaga is the one thing that I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for. Baylor is the best defensive team in the country, especially perimeter defense. They're ridiculous. They're suffocating. And that was the matchup we were supposed to get earlier in the season, but canceled because of COVID. I don't know what the deal was. I think it was maybe it was contact tracing or something. I don't know. I can't really remember what the deal was there, but that was the game we were supposed to get earlier in the year and we're robbed of. So if we can get it again, it'll make up for kind of a weak night of basketball last night.
Tonight, it's Southern Cal Gonzaga as the first game at 7:15. UCLA Michigan, the nightcap, right around 10 o'clock. You'll need a nap to make sure you stay up for that one, or at least I know I will. While the Gamecock women's basketball team is playing at 7 o'clock. Vic Schaefer against Dawn Staley. We've seen it many times when Schaefer was at Mississippi State. I forget what exact term Dawn Staley used yesterday. I think she used barn burner or something to that effect, how they've all been good games. Feels like she knows what to expect. The two coaches know what to expect out of the other coach anyway, and will be a really interesting game to see if Carolina can get back to the Final Four like UConn just did. Did you see the number attached to how many straight Final Fours they've been to, Patrick?
In the teens. Was it 13 or 17, 13?
Yeah. 13 straight Final Fours. Now, did you see the end of that game against Baylor last night?
I did, and Baylor got hosed. That was a foul.
Well, to me, this is more to your point, Patrick. What do you do at the end of a close game? You got to go to the basket, right? Oh. And I think that was the plan for Baylor. Well, actually, it looked like they wanted to post, right? They wanted to get the ball in the post and give UConn some credit. They played good defense. It didn't really allow that to happen. And so then I think the Baylor player tried to go to the basket, but I just hear my high school coach in the back of my mind, don't fade away. That's so – I think if that would have – let me put my own little personal spin on this. If that would have been me in high school making that move at the end of the game, my high school coach would have agreed with the referees and said, no, that's not a foul. That was weak. But Craig weighed in right now, says that was a foul. And especially when you look at the replay, it definitely looks like a foul to me.
The arms are just completely pushed down.
I didn't think it was a foul when it happened in real time, but having watched the replay several times and some pictures, I agree it was a foul. Clearly UConn getting the benefit of the doubt, but when you've made 12 Final Fours in a row, you kind of earned that, haven't you?
Yeah, it's so hard to make that call. Like, I've really just – every ref goes into the game hoping that I don't have to decide the outcome of this game. They kind of did, but I mean actually, I didn't. Yeah, that actually is surprising that he didn't make the call. He would love to make a call in that situation. Maybe
no,
he didn't.
I'm not saying he was. I don't think he was officiating that one. I don't know if he does women's basketball. I'm just saying he has a reputation for being a TV. The glory hog and TV Teddy. It took. You got to go to the at the end. Get going to the basket, and I think you just make it that much easier for an official to make that call. I think that was the problem for me, that you're fading away and that it wasn't egregious where the UConn players were, swiping down. That foul gets called all the time. They were not with the principle of verticality. Don't get me wrong. They weren't straight up. They were definitely tilted that way. As it was played live, I had no problem with no call there because I'm the first person to complain the next morning. Hey, refs, stop deciding the outcome, right? Let the players decide. But that was tough. We got to live all off season, or at least Baylor's had success, right? At least it's not a program on the women's side of things that's never gotten to the Final Four or anything like that. They're actually, I think, the reigning national champions. The last ones to win it, kind of like Virginia was on the men's side, though it seems forever ago. So I don't feel awful for them in that way. But yeah, they got a little host. I got no problem with your opinion if that's how you saw that thing. My question would be if you saw it live and felt it was like that. It's interesting. Anonymous texter, my understanding the whole game was full of contact. The rest were letting play on. If true, you can't change how you were calling the game by the end. Yeah, no, I'm not going to pretend that I watched it from tip to finish there. did notice that it was close, so wanted to check out the end and watch maybe the last minutes or so. And so that maybe that's also why when I was watching it live, not surprised a foul wasn't called. If you're going to miss as a referee, at least miss that one. So I can live with it moving forward. And will be interesting to see what Carolina tonight, for sure, against Texas and Vic Schaefer and company. Was an interesting day of listening to Gamecock coordinators yesterday on the football side of things, Marcus Satterfield and Clayton White. Feel like I have a bit of a better understanding of these guys who I had heard of Clayton White there at Western Kentucky, a good reputation and on his way up for sure. Marcus Satterfield, I think we all thought that hire from Shane Beamer came out of nowhere. And if you knew the assistant offensive line coach at the Carolina Panthers, you are more in the weeds right now than Patrick and his board up for the NFL draft. I think you are really plugged in. A longtime assistant, and his relationship with Matt Rule came up several times yesterday, discussing things and philosophy-wise and the whole deal. But it was interesting to hear these guys talk and the optimism, especially from Satterfield. And to me, Patrick, the difference in tone, I was trying to think back the last time there was a coaching change at South Carolina from Steve Spurrier to Will Muschamp. And the line used a lot was, we're a 4-8 football team. That's what we are going into year number one for Will Muschamp, which I thought was smart at the time, but was also kind of admitting that, hey, this team wasn't very good last year, and this is what we have to work with. It was almost putting an excuse / explanation in there, I feel like, kind of setting the base and the foundation, and it didn't hear that at all yesterday. The surprising kind of flashing lights comment to me was Marcus Satterfield was asked about the returning players from last year. And he said, I'm excited about the guys coming back. And also the fact that he said he admitted several times and was very proud that he has no idea who played what last year. It's a complete clean slate now. And that seems to me to be a completely different outlook on the new job of Gamecock football than the one we got last time.
It seems to me to be a lie. You don't think he watched every game from last year and to figure out what he has? Like, I did notice that at first. I was like, oh, okay. So he doesn't know who's opting out. Clean slate for everybody. That's very nice. But I was like, wait. He's talking about Nick Muse and watching Nick Muse and said something. I think he made a comment about not really seeing the offensive line, but seeing how they seem to play like a group that was experienced. I was like, wait, so did you watch all the games from last year? Like, what's actually going on? If you watched all the games from last year, you should have noticed that certain guys were not there at the end.
I think the point was more that anything that has happened to this point, right, it doesn't matter for these guys. I think there's a way to watch last year's game tape and not worry about what number is doing what exactly. It's more, all right, here's the concept that's being tried to be executed, right? Either it worked or it didn't, as opposed to charting guys, right? And you're grading them out at the same time. You're saying, hey, well, this guy clearly did. I think that was Satterfield's point, that, he didn't do that. He didn't watch last year or didn't watch closely. To me, it was the exact opposite approach of the Will Muschamp. Hey, I'm an SEC guy. I know the SEC. I know what we have to work with, and now it's our turn, and we're going to outwork everybody and whatever else was the philosophy at that point. I was in the NFL. He almost slipped one time and said, we are the Carolina. These times that we are South Carolina. It just, to me, I didn't get that. I didn't feel like he was trying to sell me on his approach. I genuinely thought this is what he's thinking. I feel like it's maybe more, and then this might be the Muschamp effect on you, right? That you feel like you were told maybe a version of the truth, or not even close to 100% of the truth so much last several years. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna and say, hey, we can take everything that the new coaching staff says as complete truth, and there's no reason to question anyone. And the last coaching staff, those were bad guys because they didn't want to let us know the whole thing. And now these are good guys. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it almost, I would go more the naive route as opposed to the calculated, I'm trying to get this public message out from what I heard, especially from Clayton White. We'll let you hear from both these guys as we continue to roll on this morning. But Clayton White thinks that the one thing that stood out for me from the new defensive coordinator thing I got to get used to in the SEC, the big guys can run. And just like his expression and the way he put it, it seemed completely legit to me. While I believed him, I'm almost like, oh man, so he is really new to this. Got it. And I think there is that that degree of a fresh look that Marcus Satterfield was talking about with his players. I really do think that whatever has happened in the past, they're not going back and going through Mike was grading game by game and starting guys there. They're really trying to evaluate just right now, 3 practices in and moving forward, and then going from that.
I think that's the right move, though. I mean, because I was interested to hear that Clayton White basically said the one person he pointed out as being a leader on defense was R.J. Roderick. And last season when he opted out, I don't think any of us thought that he would ever wear South Carolina uniform again. And I'm glad they don't hold it against these guys because it does seem to have kind of – you hear about guys like sitting out. And, I mean, he said it basically. It kind of reignited his love for football and not being able to play and be out there with his teammates. He probably realized that he probably made a mistake and wanted to keep playing and probably should have kept playing. So to not hold it against them like a previous staff might have, I guess if he wouldn't have opted out in the first place if the Muschamp staff was still here, presumably, or at least that's the way it looked. But maybe the staff that you opted out on would be less forgiving when a new staff comes in and just says, hey, everyone is starting from the same position. I don't know who any of your stars were. I don't know anything about you in the past. I don't know how many snaps you played last year. I don't know if you're safety one coming into the year. But, yeah, I think the fresh start has kind of reinvigorated R.J. Roderick, and it's probably nice to have him as one of those leaders. He does potentially seem to be a good fit for that kind of hybrid role in the 4-2-5. So maybe this will be like a kind of renaissance of his career at South Carolina.
White saying that it's kind of difficult to go the 4-2-5 when you barely have 10 guys at the back there. So that's part of the struggle right now.
A lot of linebackers, though.
Did go through the linebacker list. I thought that was an interesting kind of peek into how Clayton White is starting the Carolina defense here. So we'll let you hear from him, let you hear from new offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield. We'll start with what the offense is going to look like. I thought that was a really interesting comment as well. Let you hear that when we come back. Dawn Staley, her comments, along with Zaya Cook as well, ahead of tonight's 7 o'clock Elite 8 game, a spot in the Final Four on the line. Gamecocks and Texas going on the same time as Gamecock baseball is back on the field, hosting Gardner-Webb tonight. So that will start on our sister station over on ESPN 1320 AM. We'll move to 107.5 the game at the conclusion of tonight's Carolina women's basketball game. Both of those 6:45 air times, 7 o'clock tip for the women and first pitch for the baseball team. So a busy day for sure. Bill Gunter taking today off. We could argue about whether that is much deserved or not. I was going to say much deserved. I usually only say that when you have a day off, Patrick, or Jen has a day off. Just holding things down, producing from the Herndon Chevrolet studios right now, really doing all the work. 803-404-6100. David just hits us up on the Facebook live stream. Good morning from Tampa. Attaboy, David, winning the distance award so far this morning. See if you can beat that. We're going to try to live up to David's expectation, listening all the way down in Tampa. You're listening to the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Rodney, good advice.
Yeah, relax, Rodney.
I meant to get Gene's comments in there. Was all in on Professor Patrick, and then don't hate Patrick.
I'm gonna need a history lesson on Colin Sampson next time we get back to college basketball.
Okay.
He does have a whole tab on. I know he has violations. I don't know what they are, but he does have a whole tab on Wikipedia about NCAA violations.
All Indiana stuff, I believe.
Looks like there's some in Oklahoma too.
Oh yeah.
Man, that's a lot. Eric Gordon at the center of it. I don't know what to do about the lighting here.
Oh, big dilemma. Well, it doesn't look terrible.
But you can't. Are the words big enough either?
Nope. Let's see. If I take myself out, let's see how it looks.
I can read it. I can read it in the back of my screen.
Yeah, you gotta really look though, I think.
Yeah, I can make them bigger. I gotta use both sides. Currently, I just have the one side because I have this. It also comes with like papers, so I can like rip those off as well. But I can use both sides.
Fantastic. Morning, Trey.
Don't want to about the light though.
TJ, morning. We got in all the good mornings there. Rod, let's see if we can balance out your advice with something a little bit more positive this morning. What are you thinking? Basketball or Gamecock football? Which one would you like to talk about first when we come back, Rod? Yeah, Trey, agreed. Trey's all in on the whiteboard.
Thank you.
That's a good, solid, positive comment to get going this morning. And David down in Tampa, you let us know which way you want us to go when we come back.
I just wrote these off the top of my head at 5:50. I'm trying to figure out if it's actually how I want it. No Mac Jones, who might be the third pick in the draft.
Yeah, you got smoke, don't you?
Huh?
Don't you think that's smoke? Who put that out over the weekend?
Well,
I forget. Somebody said
the main person that continues to pump it is Chris Sims, who's like very close friends with Kyle Shanahan. I don't know. It might be smoke, but they don't necessarily need to do that anymore because they have the pick now.
Right.
And they are all going to his pro day instead of Justin Fields. So, I don't know.
Chris and Craig voting for football. I hear you. Jen was hoping to do number 4 from Satterfield if we could. Jake with a vote for basketball. Only people who I didn't ask have voted this morning. Yeah, I get the feeling that they are not best of buddies, Don Staley and Vic Schaefer. Coming from Asia Wilson's Twitter mainly.
Was she tweeting yesterday or just in the past?
No, when Texas won, I think, right when they won. That was a surprising move. Didn't know why. Felt that was a good move at that point. Going from Mississippi State to Texas, I'm guessing he got a big raise. Austin's a good team, but basketball program-wise, I was surprised.
I would much rather live in Austin. That would be a major factor in my decision.
Sure. Carlton putting the word out about the new SC State coach. Press conference today. Tony Madlock coming from Memphis. Jen, if you were telling me something earlier, I didn't quite get it. Looks like you're on mute there. Oh, I see you typing something.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, perfect. So, yeah, I was looking for number 4. Nice job. I'll do a liner first, though, if that's cool with you. Coming in, I'll do a liner, and then we'll hit number 4.
Okay.
Thank you. Feel like the lines of communication much clearer this morning for some reason.
Not cluttered by Gunter.
Now it is looking a lot darker behind you, Patrick. Do you turn on a light or turn off a light?
No, I think the camera auto adjusts when I lean forward and lean back.
Yeah, the lean back is pretty solid. Lean forward is pretty ominous.
Yeah, I don't know why it does it. It always does.
Always there for you. The Hot Take Hotline 24/7. 803-978-6654. You got a hot take. You're watching tonight's USC women's basketball game or Gamecock baseball game or both, and you just feel like you need to let us know your take. You can just hit up the Hot Take Hotline at 803-978-6654. It's sponsored by Twin Peaks and Never Settle. Go see them down in the Vista at 600 Gervais Street. Right now, I wanted to let you hear a little bit from new Gamecock offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield talking about where he's at with the identity of the new offense he's putting in with the Gamecocks just 3 spring practices in. Interesting comments there. I don't know what I expected to hear, but I didn't quite expect to hear that. Basically, hey, man, we're going to try it all. And we'll see what these guys can do, and we'll go from there, and we'll keep it simple and not overcomplicate things. I think that's about as good an answer as Gamecock fans could hear at this point, 3 practices in. Patrick, what about you?
Well, keep it simple in a way, but I also kind of felt like him and Clayton White were saying essentially they're just baptizing these guys in fire, because Clayton White said in 3 days, 1 padded practice so far, he's put in basically 60 or installed 60 to 70% of the defense, not all the play calls and everything, but he said going to put in as much as they can handle pretty much. And then Satterfield was talking about basically we're going to put as much as we can in right now and then just kind of iron out the details later is essentially what I gathered from it, and talking about how he showed Matt Rule, and Rule was amazed how much was put in that quickly. So I don't know. I mean, they're both – I mean, White's not new to it, but Satterfield's new to it. But I think we're going to find out pretty quickly as the practices go along who's mentally most prepared for this season, who the sharpest guys are, and I think it's probably going to give guys an opportunity to separate themselves if you're really studying your playbook. And at this point, when still kind of locked down and living the boring life, to keep the Muschamp saying going. Got nothing else to do but study your playbook. So I think this is kind of the perfect spring for a new staff to be in there and just kind of throwing it all at you from the jump.
Well, from that standpoint, right, it's perfect from an in-house deal because you're getting so much time with your players. From the opposite approach, it's the exact worst time for a new staff to come in, especially at a place where they're big on new facilities, where you can't bring in recruits and start to sell the program that way and let them kind of see and be around the new coaching staff at this point. I did see on social media yesterday that the official visits are being announced. They're out there. I think South Carolina has sent out specific, I don't know, like tickets or credentials where I think they even had the dates of maybe June 11th or something to that effect. That's the plan. The current dead period is extending, I think, to June 1st. And then they'll still need the go-ahead that you can resume in-person recruiting for the first time in that would be more than a year, I think. But I thought that was an interesting recruiting note. But you're right, Patrick, and I was surprised by kind of the reaction. And again, I'm taking them for their word, both Clayton White, the defensive coordinator, and new offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield, that they are legitimately impressed with the retention and where the team is so far. From that standpoint, I wouldn't expect to hear anything else, right? You're not going to come and say, man, these guys are really struggling to get what we wanted to get, especially the quarterbacks. Whoa, we really need to make a move there, or we need to rethink how we're doing it. No, they said the exact opposite, and especially the way that Marcus Satterfield talked about his quarterback. Have you ever heard that? No, you got the whiteboard behind you for the first day. You're all into the NFL draft. But a couple of things stood out to me. He mentioned natural thrower and big brain. That's what you need at the quarterback position, and that's how they're evaluated on the next level. I thought that was interesting. I really appreciate Satterfield not going with arm talent, first of all. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. And going natural thrower, I'd take that anytime. And then the big brain part, how he ended up breaking it down yesterday as well, I thought was interesting. He said it's not necessarily a really good ACT or SAT score. A lot of times those guys are doing too much thinking instead of just playing and reacting. It's a lot of times it's the guys that just don't have any overcomplicated thoughts, I think, but still have the mental capacity, obviously, to process everything and to grasp everything the coaches are trying to get from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, well, and I guess in simplest terms, he said that the natural thrower and big brain is just, you know it when you see it type of deal. Like, couldn't really describe what it meant to be a natural thrower.
Who are you thinking about? I had one name in my head as the perfect combination of exactly what he was talking about. I think he talked about, did he mention a specific guy when you're no, he just said in the NFL when you snap your wrist and throw it. Talking about
he did say for natural throwers, he said Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I do think of, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is kind of perfect because he's not throwing the ball fundamentally like a quarterback would probably teach a 10-year-old kid, quarterback coach would teach a 10-year-old kid how to throw the ball. And that's most how I feel about Zach Wilson, because he just kind of whips it with his wrist and it just jumps out of his hand. It's pretty ridiculous. The non-natural throwers, I don't know, I'd probably say like Mac Jones is kind of a non-natural thrower. He just is super mechanical and kind of does everything perfect by the book, but doesn't have crazy strength or anything like that. He's just kind of does everything like he would be taught.
But what about the combination of the big brain and natural thrower? Was there anybody that stood out to you? The Aaron Rodgers one I thought was an interesting example because I thought Rodgers was more like what he was talking about, the high-scoring ACT, SAT intellect there.
He's a big Jeopardy guy.
Yeah, he's kind of famous for that.
Is this a Carolina perspective?
No, to me, this was just ideal quarterback kind of outlook on things with the natural thrower and the big brain combination. It was actually Aaron Rodgers' predecessor, Brett Favre, that stood out to me as, that's right. I remember that because you know that kind of famous story now after he retired that
not know the nickel defense.
Yeah, one of his teammates in the NFL had to explain to him what the nickel defense was. Like, like that's the extreme. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you'd ever associate big brain necessarily, but obviously Favre knew enough. But I think what I got from Satterfield talking yesterday was even when a play breaks down, a quarterback needs to be able to adjust on the fly and not be kind of beholden to what the coach wanted to do or the theory that was supposed to happen on the play. You got to make a play in reality, and that's the most important thing that Satterfield's talking about. And I thought kind of explaining it to me anyway, or I heard it in a really simple and easily digestible way. It made a lot of sense how he was putting it. You never got one guy that kind of popped in your head as he was describing the big brain versus kind of making plays and all of that, Patrick?
Not really, because Brett Favre, I mean, wasn't he known for making boneheaded plays as well?
Oh, sure. Well, I don't know about boneheaded, but gambling and putting the ball in jeopardy and certainly betting on his arm to beat the defense more often than not.
Ryan Fitzpatrick does that too, but he is a Harvard grad, so he does have a big brain.
No doubt about that. Craig's going Pulp Fiction on us. Thought Marcus Satterfield might have been doing his Samuel L. Jackson impression. Look at the big brain on Luke. It's Craig, Marcus was talking about yesterday instead of Brad.
I did get the vibe that Luke Doty is way far ahead. Just in his quick little excerpts about everybody, he went all in on Luke Doty, talking about the arm and the brain and all that. And everyone else, there was kind of like Colton Gauthier was more of like this is kid's going to be really good once he starts figuring it all out. And then Jason Brown, it was more of the you see flashes here and there, but he's still trying to transition to the pro style offense, so it's going to be a work. But you can see like the natural ability. But was pretty much effusive in his praise of Luke Doty, and there was really nothing he said that, other than maybe later on talking about forcing him to just stand there and throw and become a better thrower and not have to worry or rely on his legs too much. But as it stands right now, I think it's for sure Luke Doty's job to lose, which I don't think was much of a question, but we weren't completely sure.
Why don't we hear exactly what he had to say about Luke Doty as we go to break here? When we come back, I want to let you hear one specific other position beside quarterback on the offensive side that really stood out, a comment about that position group that really stood out to me from new Gamecock offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield. Here he is talking about his, I guess we're going to call him a freshman quarterback, maybe technically a sophomore after playing. I don't think anybody knows in college what your class is anymore. But Luke Doty, after some limited action last year, returning as the number one quarterback, at least at this point, early on in the spring. Here's Marcus Satterfield. You're listening to the early game on 107.5. Nice work, Jen. See, now, yeah, that lighting looks really good. You're right. It's weird. As soon as you move forward like that much.
Yeah, I don't know what's causing it. I wonder how to change the setting.
Yeah, from auto to manual, you can just leave it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can on the computer or not. Well, I think it just recognizes that you need more light when you move forward.
Man, I wish I knew more about computers. Okay.
Definitely the main thing that stuck with me coming out of college. Like, I took one class about computer. What was I doing?
Well, they always change now, so it's like almost. I know computer science majors that were computer whizzes in college, and then everything changes, and they're like, oh wow, I just spent tens of thousands of dollars to learn something that has been extinct for
Right.
2 years as soon as I graduated.
Good name from Todd on the text line. So what are the Niners saying there? Didn't want to get left at the answer at 12, huh?
Yeah, I really don't know what to believe. It's a daylight bulb. Chris says, I think you need the daylight bulbs.
Yeah, I don't
This?
it's a room lighting thing. It's a computer lighting thing.
Well, I think if this thing is off, it might not. Will I readjust?
All right, so Jason says he needs more baseball. Good morning to Beverly. I think she said good morning to Bill only yesterday, so I feel better about that today. Sorry that Bill's not here this morning.
See, so
Daylight is now a color.
is this better?
Yeah, that looks good.
Sounds bright.
It's got a solid reflection. Yeah, as soon as you go with the cup, it definitely changes.
I don't know. See, I don't. Would you have called Connor Shaw and not called Trevor?
Yeah, I think I would. What about you? No?
I don't think so. I think he was like just a good quarterback. I think that's kind of. I guess I don't necessarily know. I wasn't really following the draft back then, but I don't know what necessarily was the knock on his draft profile. Maybe I need to pull up the Connor Shaw draft profile.
I would guess arm strength.
Right. So wouldn't that go into natural thrower?
Maybe. Jen would like to come back with 6, please.
Okay.
And no is the answer, Jake. No is the answer to me. Anyway, I know Ortre Smith spoke recently and says he's feeling good, and that is a bit of a spring narrative right now. But, man, I think that was 2017, his freshman year, last time I saw production. I mean, he was really good his freshman season, and then just wasn't that after the knee injury, which it says feels good. So possibly him, possibly the kid from Georgia Tech, I guess, who broke Calvin Johnson's touchdown record his freshman season at Georgia Tech, but then hasn't done anything really since then.
Of our offense in 3 practices we completed a ball to the tight ends over 46 times in 7-on-7 and team, and there's nowhere else in the country that could even begin to rival that.
Oh, throw it to the tight end guy. Just so happy right now. So happy. I just feel like new offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, Marcus Satterfield, has completely set himself up for that guy to be absolutely irate during the season if there is not consistent tight end production from a pass catching standpoint. I know that was a pretty bold statement. You know, we have the promo that we're running about the new coaching staff, and Satterfield's the guy talking about no retreads, and he was not afraid to be pretty bold at his opening press conference, and this was press conference number 2. Not afraid, obviously, to go a little bit out on a limb there. Patrick, what'd you make of what you just heard about the Gamecocks tight ends moving forward?
It's been a great month for tight ends. I mean, you look just on the NFL level, you start Patriots. Bill Belichick, probably the smartest football mind in the world, thinks that a tight end's important enough to spend the highest contracts on the top 2 tight ends in all of free agency. And I think 2 of the 5 top tight end sellers in the league. Kyle Pitts is probably going to be a top 5 or 10 pick here. Anybody that watched him last year should know the value of a tight end. Hey, I love it. Nick Muse's got to be excited.
Jake hits us up, Facebook live stream. Do the Gamecocks have any wide receivers that can take Shi Smith's place? Do we have anyone that stands out? Papa Joe, at the same time, talking about the quarterback, Jason Brown, will be the most experienced quarterback, so is he getting any reps? Also, any word on the wide receiver that came with him? Talking about E.J. Jenkins, who was spoken about in a couple of different ways recently by a couple of different people. I know Shane Beamer talking about moving him around and trying to figure out exactly what he can do. Nick Muse talking about him, how he can do pretty much anything. He's a big dude, and he can go deep. He can run whatever route you want to. So he has definitely been talked about so far in early practice. But again, you're 3 practices in, 1 in pads. And it was Muse's comment, I think, specifically about what Jenkins needs to do, needs to get more physical. That's the concern that I have with a 6'7" receiver. You move him over to tight end, whatever. I would think that's exactly where teams will try to gain an advantage or take a height advantage and just out physical a guy like that. Is why I don't think we see receivers that tall typically.
Yeah, that's the first thing you want to hear about a 6'8" receiver is, yeah, he's physical. At the point of attack, nobody can mess with him. But he is very skinny. I can't remember what his weight was, but he is slightly built. I don't know how much more he can put on to get more physical, but I mean, this is where Satterfield's gonna make his money this first year. You're gonna have to be creative with the personnel, whether it's multiple tight ends and multiple running backs. He did say that, I don't really want to give anything away, but yeah, when you got Marshawn Lloyd and Kevin Harris, you're probably going to see them both on the field at the same time. So if you don't have that go-to wide receiver, in the break you're talking about Amarion Brown, the Georgia Tech transfer, like, you're going to have to be creative somehow and just try and move, whether it's through motion or weird personnel packages, and try to get these guys in favorable matchups, because you might not have the horses right away.
But that's not the conversation. That's certainly not what you heard out of Marcus Satterfield anyway, publicly. And we'll be interested to hear from Justin Stepp, the position coach, when he gets his chance here in spring to evaluate his position group, because this is where this coaching staff is at, right? First of all, when you're coming in and one of Shane Beamer's kind of guiding principles, or the explanation for one of the reasons he has the job and why he's been a successful assistant coach and kind of projects to be a successful head coach, authenticity, right? So when you have that word attached to you, when you're speaking publicly, you know you're going to be held to what you're saying. So you have that out there, then along with injecting enthusiasm and energy into the program. And that, to me, it's a bit of a tight line to walk, as you're coming off of a 2-win season and 16 losses combined in the last 2 years, knowing what the program is and where this fan base is. So moving forward here in the coming months, walking this line between, being optimistic, energetic, and being who these guys are, and yet not overselling it, Patrick. Does that make sense where I'm going with that?
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm not too worried about them overselling it, I guess. Are you saying basically they can't just rip on the guys? Like, I think we all understand that there's been a lack of talent at the position for a couple years. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded from Muschamp, but like, they're gonna hype everybody up, I feel like, and I'm just not gonna believe it until I see it. Maybe this coaching staff just has that effect on people, though. We'll just always expect the best until we're shown otherwise. But I mean, until I see it, I'm not going to get my hopes up about the receiving corps.
No, I understand what you're saying there, but my point is that as a new coaching staff, you certainly want to have the connection with the fan base is obviously improved from the former one. You want to keep that positive relationship going. And in doing so, you can't come out and basically do what Will Muschamp did and say, hey, deepest, most competitive team. And then you don't see that happen on the field, and you feel like that trust or bond was broken a couple of years ago and remained kind of just sliding the wrong direction. That's where it's an interesting to kind of evaluate these guys' words and see how it works out when you get more practices in.
I think it helps that Satterfield is just monotone the whole time. He's not going to get anybody too riled up.
Hour 2 coming up here on the early game.
He is just all business.
What was that?
He is just all business. I don't think he changed his tone the entire time.
Jake, I'm a little confused by the question. Where does Joyner stand for the season? I guess maybe that's Bill's quarterback talk. I think they put his picture up along with a couple other guys as Pete Limbo, I think the special teams coordinator, did that about guys who have impressed early on in special teams, and he was one of those guys. But he's a receiver. He's going to be in the mix. I think there are 18 receivers right now at Carolina. That's crazy to me.
That's a lot.
All right, how can we help you back there with the big board?
I just need to erase it and write bigger, I think.
What's that?
I just need to erase it and write bigger. It's hard to figure out the spacing without lines. You know how far it's... Because also, I realize that I'm very inaccurate spacing and word size here.
I'm the worst at writing that kind of stuff. I always go slanted on the way down. Start on the margin and just go all the way in.
What do you mean?
No, you did a good job staying straight down. I go slanted for sure.
Oh, yeah. It's just...
So how many what does the number go down to? Like 18? Is that what you're down to? How many you got on there? 20?
23.
Yeah, I'd say if you take that in half, if you just go 12, I would think that would be about the size you need to go.
And then just use both sides.
Limit it to a dozen. I think it'll be relatively easily seen. Maybe you just grid it out. Or does that defeat the purpose of having the whiteboard? Probably does.
What does gridded out mean?
Just write in those 12 lines, and then you can erase inside the lines.
Oh, yeah, I could get a ruler.
Right.
Get a little tape.
Statement about a ruler so high. Oh, Craig, great call. Make your own lines. When you have to go yardstick, maybe? I'm sure you don't have a yardstick.
I definitely do not have a yardstick.
Do you have the box left?
Box.
Yeah.
Box.
I do box.
Use that as your line.
I was
Right.
measuring.
That's some Midwestern ingenuity.
I can write fairly straight.
Oh, the left. Just getting after it.
Wow, that's big.
What are we doing on the soccer here, my man? EAC shots. I don't even know. I played from 5 to 18. 5 years old to 18 years old. PAC. Let's see if I can figure that out. PAC shots. Maybe it's a separate view.
What? PAC is a school?
No. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Is that who Airport was playing?
Yeah.
All right. PAC Panthers. Yeah. Chalkboard paint for the wall. Yeah, we got the chalkboard paint. My house for the kids. Yep. Got it on the table. Yeah, I can see Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Kyle Pitts. Okay. Looking good, Patrick.
This is too big.
That's good correction, though. Penei Sewell, I'm impressed you can actually spell his name correctly.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Can't wait to get the full mock going.
He's gonna have little puppets at some point.
PAC Panthers homeschool kids?
Isn't that a sports league or something?
What's that?
I thought that was some kind of a league.
Why did we just get the full stat breakdown though? Also,
That's what I was asking. Guessing that might be his team.
yeah.
All right, got a couple other names for both good and bad for big brain natural throwers. We'll continue to discuss.
I can easily segue that into 49ers.
All right, here we go.
You're up.
Walt got to be pumped these days. Didn't get a Pac-12 team into the Final Four last night. Only had one of the three in action. But Oregon State, I guess they gave Houston a pretty good game. That one was a struggle to watch. It was a bit of a slugfest. 67-61 the final score. Houston back in the Final Four now for the first time since Phi Slam and Jamma. And Patrick, I want to start hour number 2 with this. Is that the best team nickname there is out there? You got a team nickname that can beat Phi Slam and Jamma? I think that's about as good as it gets.
Well, there's units in football. Like the Purple People Eaters is pretty awesome.
Yep, I was going to put that up there if we did a poll question this morning. Purple People Eaters is up there. Bad Boys, pretty good for the Pistons back in the day.
Yeah.
Showtime with the Lakers.
What's our other college basketball team though? I don't know many.
Oh, none that I can
Fab
remember.
Five doesn't count. That's just
Yeah, it does. Sure it does.
Eh,
That's a nickname that
I guess so.
you identify with the team immediately, right? Fab Five. That was Michigan back in the day. Phi Slam and Jamma. Houston a decade before then. Other than that, there are not a lot of team nicknames out there that I immediately associate. You know, you had the Fire Ant defense for the Gamecocks in the 80s. So I called it Black Death, I think, at one point. Trying to think of other ones. The Steel Curtain for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense back in, I believe, the 70s, early 80s. It might have been late 60s, actually, before my time.
We just got
The
two
Bronx
dunk cities
Bombers.
immediately.
Yeah, Dunk City. I got Florida Gulf Coast. Who else we got?
Yeah, that's what they were talking about. Was that their nickname though, or were they just coined that during the NCAA tournament because they were dunking on other people?
Yeah, but I'm guessing that's kind of how it happened with Houston as well, right? I don't know.
The first idea how Phi Slama Jama was created.
It's a great name. Yeah, Chris, Running Rebels. No, that's actually UNLV's mascot. I'm pretty sure they're not just the Rebels, but they are the Running Rebels. And that those UNLV great teams didn't just have a nickname. The Doomsday Defense for Dallas, again, a unit, not bad. The Hogs for the Redskins back in the heyday of the 80s, pretty good, but again, just one unit as opposed to the entire team. Phi Slama Jama was just, you know exactly what you're talking about. Fab Five, even though I guess it's just those 5 guys. That was basically their whole team. They all started eventually as freshmen. Got it. The bad boys for the Pistons. They hated that team. Great nickname for them, though. I guess maybe you could go the U at Miami, but not really, right?
Press Virginia. Do you accept Press Virginia?
Yeah, I guess.
Came from Tyler on the text line.
Yeah, that's not bad. You just got to win more, right?
And they weren't Press Virginia this year.
Which is that's the
hard. Have to always be, yeah. Huggins basically said he didn't have the players to run the Press Virginia deal this year.
Legion of Boom. Good point. Sam on Twitter just hit me up at TimHill1075. That's
also the unit though.
Hawks. What's that?
That's just the secondary though.
Right. But it does in my head I instantly can identify that team.
Yeah.
Makes sense. To me, that's what you need. As opposed to like Virginia is not, I can't say it's West Virginia 2016. Or that was Kevin Pittsnoggle. I remember that team. To me, it has to be the exact team. 40 Minutes of Hell is another good example of a program's identity. Now, I go to Scotty Thurman and Corliss Williamson when I think of those Nolan Richardson Arkansas teams. But it wasn't just that year where they had that style. That was kind of always the style. I think that's kind of the tough part about the team nickname. But Kelvin Sampson and Houston has Houston back in the Final Four, first time since '84. Baylor in the Final Four for the first time since 1950 on the men's side of things. On the women's side of things, where do you stand? I feel like it tells me a lot about how you watch basketball, what you got out of that final sequence for Baylor women's basketball, trying to keep UConn out of the Final Four for the first time in 13 years and didn't do it. Down 1, final seconds, get a shot off, don't get it up to the rim. Their player falls to the floor. There were 2 defenders there. As I was watching it, I didn't think it was foul. I had no problem with the no call. I thought it was a bit unorganized, or it was the defense forcing Baylor to do something they didn't want to do. It was clear to me they wanted to go down, get the ball down on the post. They were unable to do it. After that, it was trying to create a shot. And when you fade away, when you go away from the basket, to me, you give away a lot of the benefit of the doubt of getting a foul call, especially in that situation. Now, I understand the Baylor coach, Kim Mulkey, who Baylor was the reigning champs there on the women's side of things, but mentioned that she's got video, or let's see, the exact quote is, "You don't need a quote from me. I've got still shots and video from 2 angles. One kid hits her in the face and one kid hits her on the elbow." And when you're the coach of that team, I get kind of sticking up for it, and it's a brutal way for your season to end. But I had no problem with the no call. Patrick, where do you stand this morning? Foul, no foul. Baylor, UConn women.
I guess I'm okay with the no call because in live action it is more difficult, and I'd probably have to watch it again and see where the ref was actually standing. But it's also their job to have the right sight lines to make that call if it's there. But I mean, there was a texter that texted it early that said they're basically letting them play the whole game, I think. And for someone who basically just turned on the last 2 minutes, it is hard to judge because the last thing you want to see, and we've complained about refs before, but if it's consistent the whole game, Like in football, if they're not really calling pass interference or they're really letting the defensive backs maul the guy, and then you randomly just call one that's ticky-tack, you have a bigger problem with that than just staying consistent and not calling the whole game. So I'd really probably have to watch the whole game to get a full grasp for if that type of play was getting called earlier. But it was a foul. I mean, there's nothing you can do. I wish there was a way to replay because Baylor did deserve to go to the line and have 2 free throws to try and win that game because it was a foul. The arms were down. You see that called all the time when just hands up. You see a guy or girl with their hands up and just the contact is initiated by the offense and they still get called for the foul. I mean, it's never consistent. So her hands were clearly tilted downwards and she was getting hit in the face and she was getting hit in the arm by the other girl on the other side. I mean, there was a lot of contact. But I also understand the ref not wanting to call that at the end of the game because they don't want to decide it.
Gut reaction when it happened. Did you go, oh, that was a foul, they had to call that? Or, yeah, man, no, that's a bummer. Because I was the last one. I'm like, yeah.
Gut reaction from the stadium angle, whatever the angle was that we get on TV, the TV angle,
right.
I was okay with it. But it probably looked better. It probably looked worse on the court, right?
I think it depends on what angle you're looking at, right? And from the referee, I think, who was going to make that call, you can't see it the way that you see it from like the side angle where you really see the arms are tilted down and the whole thing. But again, the fact that we have to discuss it in this way, the fact that you mentioned ticky-tack, I think to me is describing my overall philosophy here is if there is a call like this, if there is a 50-50 can go one way or the other, swallow the whistle. Let the players decide. And to me, I think as a coach, you have to coach your players up that that's what's going to happen in that situation, and that's why you don't fade away. That's why you got to go to the hoop. Your old man take, Patrick, that you guys were repeating on Twitter over the weekend, you and Bill. It's exactly right, man. It is a principle you have to live by in these moments or be willing to accept your fate if you don't get bailed out with a questionable foul. And that's why you have to have that mindset of going to the basket. You fade away, you get what you deserve. I got no sympathy for you. Male, female, whatever it is, in the big time moments, you have to know that. And that's why in the post game press conference, okay, you want to give me still photos. You talk about replay that? You want to get it overturned on replay? That would be awful for basketball. Absolutely awful. That's where we go to.
We did get sent the picture on the text line, and she is clearly getting hit, but she's also the fadeaway is bad. Like she did everything right until that. And if she did go up strong, there would be no way they could have possibly swallowed the whistle on that one. The fadeaway almost gave them an excuse not to call it. Exactly. But if she went up with it, the way their arms are positioned, I mean, she would have gotten just completely mauled. And hit the deck and everything. Like, there's no way it would have not been called.
Right. That pump fake, you pump fake there, and you try to go through it. Just go to the basket.
Make them make the call.
Not even that. Just know that that's your mindset, right?
She has literally that forearm is in her face. Though we just got set another angle of it, and there is a arm literally hitting her in the face.
Nah, that one, the reversing.
That's a bad look.
Yeah, that is a bad look. But again, we all have the benefit. I mean, this is still shot one frame. Yeah. You can't make your judgment on that. I need to know where you were in real time as you were watching that thing. And I get it. We all saw it from the TV angle, so maybe it's a bit unfair that way. But I had no problem with it. I think if you're saying you have to have that foul call in that moment, like LeBron James did, classically, your boy on Twitter afterwards, then you also have to be okay when refs overstep their bounds and call something that's ticky-tack. And that's why I'm of the thought process that, hey, man, sometimes you gotta let that go. You're fading away. It had to be egregious to me. And I get it. You got a still shot on a reverse angle of contact. but it's still not changing my mind on this thing.
That's everyone that's texting in or commenting is pro Baylor. How much of this is because they just really
All
wanted
of it.
UConn to lose? Is 100%
All
because
of
they
it.
really wanted UConn to lose?
No doubt. If this was a UConn player and Baylor ends up getting the benefit of the doubt, we're seeing zero pictures right
I mean,
now.
Baylor's a really
3-1.
good team too, as evidenced by they were leading that game
Reigning.
for most of the time and took it down to the last second.
And
Like,
reigning
you
national
just don't want
champs.
to play. You just don't want to play UConn.
No, it's not people don't want to play UConn. It's that you're just tired of UConn. And Gino Ariema is Gino Ariema. And this
I
is
thought it was totally about the matchup.
course.
You want the most advantageous matchup.
against the reigning defending national champs. Either
That's
one.
what I was saying. That's what I was saying.
No,
Your
to
gut
me,
is
this
that
is-
you don't want to play UConn, but Baylor's
No.
still.
This is a likability thing, I think. This is the world is ready for UConn women's basketball not to be in a Final Four for the first time in 13 years. That didn't happen. That's what I see. But there probably is some of that as well from the Gamecock perspective, especially knowing that the national championship didn't go through UConn, and the matchup for years went so many blowouts in UConn's way. I just think that now we're in a different spot for Gamecock women's basketball. You saw the domination a couple of years ago. This year, Carolina should have won the game, just didn't. UConn gets the benefit of the doubt of a back iron three that goes way up in the air and falls through and ends up getting the win. I don't think there's that aura of invincibility.
No.
No pun intended. With
And the
Gino
different
Ariema.
basketballs. Remember that one? They're playing with different brand of basketball, the Nike basketball that South Carolina wasn't used to. So we'll be good in this tournament.
803-404, the number into the program. 7 o'clock tonight, Elite Eight game, a matchup that we've seen many times with Don Staley going against Vic Schaefer, the former Mississippi State coach, now coaching Texas. Part of the subplot for sure as the Gamecocks try to punch another ticket to the Final Four. Don Staley's thought about the specific Elite Eight matchup. We'll get that when we come back. Talk a bunch of football. Got baseball tonight as well for the Gamecocks. It's a busy Tuesday for sure. That's what March is, and I love it. 803-404-6100. Again, if you'd like to call or text, it's the early game here on 107.5. All right, so I see 6 names behind you, Patrick.
I can fit like 8 probably. That's too big.
No, that's pretty clear.
Yeah, but it's taking up too much space. I wanted to practice over the weekend.
What is Matt from Orangeburg talking about moving the Masters?
From Augusta or the date?
I don't know.
Not playing Masters in Augusta this year? All right, I'm finding the article about the Nike balls. All right, Trey. Don Staley said the Nike ball is not the same as the Wilson basketballs that South Carolina uses, and they bounce different. So when the point guards were dribbling, it was coming up way higher and much harder to control. That can be an issue. Playing with a different basketball can be troublesome if it's just not inflated to how you're used to.
Oh, it can definitely be a problem. But to me, as a coach, when you say that, you're just saying, here's the excuse.
Hey, but neutral court, familiar basketball,
Oh, that's going to be the big difference.
a one-possession game, why not?
Garbage. There you go, Trey.
We're talking about
Beckner.
Paige.
Talk about Craig.
I think we're talking about Paige Buchers, right?
I think it's pronounced Beckner. I think Katie might be her middle name.
Beckner. There's no N in her name.
What's that? I'm mispronouncing it. Let's see.
I think Beckers or Buchers, but there's no N.
So it's just Becker. I'm looking. You're right.
Buchers, yeah. Buchers.
No, it's not you. I know the U's in there, but it's not pronounced that way.
I typed in Paige pronunciation. If you type in her name and it says, listen,
Definitely Becker's.
this is what Google says. Let's see what this one says. Whoa, too different.
Yeah. I don't think Google is the authority on women's basketball.
The second one was from YouTube.
From
Yeah.
YouTube?
Yeah. Do you know who her best friend is? Have you seen this? Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. Like, they just both happen to be the best basketball players in the state of Minnesota in the same year and have been, like, best friends since middle school.
Wow, that's crazy.
That could develop a kinship.
Yeah.
Jen will go number 8 coming back, please. Straight on in.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've heard this old timey clip before.
Great one. Got no love.
It's difficult. You know, it's going to be a difficult match. And I've always said, because we've been in this position before, the Elite Eight game is the toughest game. The toughest game, because that is the threshold that you have to get over to get to the Final Four.
Dawn Staley, ahead of tonight's matchup, Carolina and Texas. Staley versus Vic Schaefer, former Mississippi State head coach. And the men's side of that, an example of how difficult the Elite Eight can be last night when Baylor gets to the Final Four for the first time since 1950. Houston's back in the Final Four for the first time since 1984. I think we are skewed. Our perspective is skewed because of that Gamecock run to the Final Four a couple of years ago, 4 years ago now in 2017, that these things just happen. It was such a unicorn at the time and continues to be that. And a lot of you, not a lot of you, but several of you weighing in this morning and asking on an update from the Frank Martin situation. There is no official update for sure. I know there's a report from Gamecock Central that, let's see the headline on Gamecock Central this morning, Martin's return as Gamecocks head coach moving closer. This is not specifically to that report or any other one. But this kind of situation, how the reporting goes, the reason why I would prefer to move on to a different discussion, there's just so much speculation, right? And these things do change. A lot of times it's very easy to say, hey, that report the other day was totally wrong, and now the outcome is totally opposite. Well, actually, the report from days before can be completely accurate. The situation can just change. I feel like this has kind of ebbed and flowed now over the last couple of weeks, and there are those of you out there that have hit us up and said, there has to be a decision made right now, and the transfer portal and the whole thing, this is going to kill the whole program, or what? This is being handled the wrong way. I don't know. I think there are just very few people who do know right now, and that's why I'm not speculating just rampantly about what's happening out there. Officially, there's no word, and Frank Martin is the coach. That Gamecock Central report mentioned that they're reporting that 2 more additional years on Frank Martin's, what it just has 2 years left on his contract right now, is being worked towards. I obviously assume if Frank Martin's going to remain the head coach at Carolina, that's going to happen. But then it comes a buyout question. What's the buyout language going to be? And that's all part of the situation right now. I don't know how this thing's going to get resolved. I haven't known in the last several weeks. I don't know anymore as we sit here today. And I'm not sure that anyone does. That's part of just where this process is right now. And after a disappointing 6-15 season with all the COVID complications, it's something that no one has dealt with before. So the more authoritatively I hear anyone speak on this situation, the more I grab my wallet in my back pocket and wondering, all right, what are you trying to sell me here? Because I don't know the details, and I think very few people, if anyone does, because they're 2 sides of this thing, and I don't know which one will eventually end up on moving forward with the Gamecock basketball program. As it pertains to tonight's matchup, though, it's just looking at Texas's season, and they're a number 6 seed, right? Just knocked off number 2 seed Maryland in a hard-fought physical game. Diane called us yesterday and said she was happy to see Maryland not in there because they were crossing a lot, playing a little bit too physical to her liking. But that Baylor-UConn game where it came down to the last play, and a bunch of you, I'd say, 90%, Patrick? 90% of people weighing in on the text line this morning are going with that. I should have called a foul. Jeremy is the one guy I've seen. Not a foul, like you said, Tim. She faded away from contact. In basketball especially, you can't let one no call decide the game. I'm sure UConn could easily go back and say, hey, with 5 minutes left in the second quarter, Baylor fouled us. It wasn't called. Move on, people. Ha-ha. I don't think the ha-ha is necessary. I get it why Baylor's not moving on. And so Jeremy's with me, but I get where you guys are coming from. You thought it was a foul. I understand that certainly the visual evidence is there that there was contact. Now, as it pertains to Texas, they played Baylor 3 or 4 times this season. Let me go back and check this thing out. The first meeting, I believe this is the first meeting, I want to double check. It was not pretty for Texas at all. 60-35 on Valentine's Day. And they played them 2 times since then, lost both of those games. The one in Austin was a 7-point game, as close as they got. And then it looks like in the Big 12 tournament championship, or at least in the Big 12 tourney, they lost by 11 to that team that just lost a heartbreaker last night to UConn in the Elite Eight. Won a close game against Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament, and then won a close game, obviously, against Maryland, a 3-point game, beat the number 3 seed UCLA in the NCAA tournament by 9, so certainly playing well, and oddly enough, have kept teams basically scoring the exact same amount of points here in the NCAA tournament. 62 points for both Bradley and UCLA, and then 61 points for Maryland. So that might be a big key. But as I say that, I think that's the the bonus of this year's Gamecock team being where it is right now, they've won by a bunch of different ways. The last game, I think a good example, Patrick, where the All-American Aaliyah Boston in foul trouble early on only ends up with 9 points and 5 rebounds, and yet Carolina still gets a lot of post presence. Keisha Amay here off the bench, mainly, and rolls by 11 points over a pretty solid Georgia Tech team. Whatever Texas is going to throw at Carolina tonight, I think they will have seen it to this point, even though they're still a relatively young team. Now, the question will be, how do they handle it, and what kind of contributions do they get on a 1 through 7 with where the playing rotation is right now?
Yeah, and they were asked about. I heard Zach Cook asked about a couple of times. Like they feel like, or sounded like, they know what to expect from a Vic Schaefer team too, even though they haven't played Texas yet. But I mean, you got to feel confident. I think more than anything, you just feel confident that Aaliyah Boston's not going to be limited in multiple games in a row. Like, she's just been too good and too consistent of a player for that. And just looking back at the stats from the Texas-Maryland game, Maryland was ice cold from three. They were 22%, 5 for 20-something. It was a really bad shooting performance. South Carolina, I guess they're not necessarily known to just be a long-range shooting team. But if you can just knock down a couple of them and just make them respect it and keep making your free throws, I think you match up very well with this team.
7 o'clock tonight, again, tip time for the USC women's basketball team. That's the exact same time the baseball team will get going against tonight as well. So that one will be over on the AM. The baseball game will be on our sister station, ESPN 1320 AM, and we'll join it in progress after the basketball broadcast here on 107.5 The Game.
I'm curious what everyone's viewing is going to be like tonight. Like, is everyone going to be flipping back and forth between baseball, women's basketball, and men's basketball, or is everybody completely checked out on the men's basketball tournament at this point? Because if you looked at the map, there are just no even remotely local teams. The only team east of the Mississippi was Michigan, and I think the closest team to here would have been Houston probably. So does that affect people, or are they just completely out on it? There's no Duke to cheer for or against. Like, there's really no one too crazy polarizing in the tournament anymore. It seems like there's just not been a lot of interest, at least on the text line today. There was nobody talking about it.
Well, Gonzaga has been so good. I think if that game is close at all, that's when everybody gets kind of reinvested tonight. If they continue to roll, it's easy to keep your eyes elsewhere.
Yeah, they're just so distant from here, it feels like. Nobody that I know around here has any connection to Gonzaga at all. They're just a great basketball team and fun to watch.
No doubt about it. We'll see if they can keep their run going. Again, they're the early game tonight. And interestingly enough, you're talking about the distance in this thing. I get that, but we've seen plenty of Columbia connections on the men's side of things. I mentioned Alabama with a couple of Columbia guys, and Juwan Gary and Jordan Bruner. They were in the other night, and then you got in the Southern Cal perspective, Chavez Goodwin, Hammond guy who played with Seventh Woods and originally went to Wofford and moved out to Southern Cal and been a contributor for that squad. So you do have at least one Columbia connection in that game going tonight in the early game, and then the late game as well. Maybe you'll watch that one after you get the double dose of Gamecock women's basketball and baseball starting at 7 o'clock tonight. I like who hit us up here on the live stream. Matthew, this is like the Dan Patrick Show, minus all the talent and entertainment. He threw in a JK. Well done, Matthew. We've reached the halfway point. Time for us to cry ourselves to sleep, commiserate after that shot from Matthew. Well done, sir. We'll kick off the second half of the show next. 803-404-6100. Comments from Gamecock football offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield. Coming up next, it's the early game on 107.5. I cannot, Trey. This was a gift from the one and only former Gamecock slugger, Brian Jeffcoat. Hooked me up with this hat. Ken, what is some kind of golf deal? Golf company RM, I think it is, or is this RM? Golf apparel. I don't even know what it is. Should probably. It doesn't say that. So I think that's like an R and an M combined. Well, I remember.
Their hat.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was more.
Rick Martin, maybe? Is that what it is? Let's see. Golf. No. Let's see if you guys are helping me out here. Clearly, I need it.
Man, Gonzaga's not remotely close to anything.
Yeah, I'm with you, Craig. I'm all in on Gonzaga getting it this year.
I just looked where Gonzaga was on the map to see if there's any chance of me ever going to Gonzaga game in my life, and the answer is definitely not.
I'm trying to figure out what is the shelf with the football here. I don't even see a football back here today.
It might be behind your left elbow. Could be mistaken as a football, I think. Yeah.
Basketball. Oh, I got the old starting lineups up there, man. Got Gary Clark, Art Monk, and Daryl Green out there for Patrick. He's probably only heard of one of those guys. No, you've heard of them all, right?
The Fun Bunch? You got 2/3 of the Fun Bunch there.
No, to me they were it was the Posse. Is what I knew.
Yeah, Gary Clark, Ricky Sanders, and Art Monk.
Nice pull on Ricky Sanders. I had the Posse poster back in the day.
That was the Reagan when they're at the White House. Said, "Where's Ricky Sanders?" He threw the pass to Ricky Sanders in the White House lawn.
Nice work.
I would lose any.
T and M. Oh, I see. So that's a T and that's an M. Oh, you guys got that? T and M. I got to look up Travis Matthews. Bill, thanks for the help on that one.
Huh.
Who was Travis Matthews?
Yeah, Travis Matthews Golf. I'm looking it up now. No, just Travis Matthews, singular. Bill. Patrick, clearly it's a golf apparel and lifestyle brand inspired by the California coast, bro.
That's why you like it.
That describes me to a T.
Mm-hmm.
M.
Haven't you seen him munching on his avocado toast every morning?
Is Travis Matthews a golfer or just?
No, I think he just got this brand. It's like other random names. Whoa, these shirts are $90. That's why I don't have a shirt.
Yeah.
All golf gear is super expensive, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
No. Well, with the name brand stuff, yeah. But like, you can get the same exact shirts that have the Augusta deal or any kind of logo on them. You get them for like $20 max if they're just if they're just generic.
I thought that was the whole thing about the pro shop at Augusta. Every polo with the logo is like $100.
Oh yeah, there's a reason I don't own any. Okay, Craig's all in. It's expensive, the Travis Matthew. Well, I didn't pay for it. Jeff Coat hooked me up with a hat. Yeah, $90 for a shirt. I would say so. Yeah, good call, Carlton. That was right as I was coming into football. Charlie Brown, part of the Redskins receiving corps. He wasn't part of the Posse, though. He was part of the Fun Bunch, I think they were talking about. That was, I think, that Super Bowl before I really knew what was going down in like '83. I think they were known for like the group high fives in the end zone.
Yeah. All jumping at the same time.
Be heading back in here shortly.
All right, Jen, I think I teased Satterfield there, so let's play one of his that we haven't played yet. How about?
I say 1, 3, or 5.
Let's do 3.
Coach Muschamp and the guys did a really nice job of laying a good foundation offensively from a personnel standpoint. We've implemented a ton, and on purpose. 1, to teach the coaches what we're doing. 2, just to see how much our guys can do. And it's been really nice to see them go out and had 4-week, we call it towel ball, had 4-week stretch of walkthroughs where we couldn't have a ball out there. We executed some of our offense and through the first 3 practices. Sit down, and Coach Roll was in town for pro day last week, and I sit down and was going through some stuff with him, and he's like, "Holy cow, y'all got a lot of offense in for 3 days." And we did that as a plan, but it's really good to see how our guys are out there able to execute it.
Marcus Satterfield, new Gamecock offensive coordinator. What do you think when you hear that? Patrick asked you that earlier, and you said you're not buying it?
Which part?
About the returners, or was it something else that you weren't buying earlier?
No, the part I wasn't buying was when they asked, I can't remember who it was, but asked about guys opting out, and his response was, "Oh, I'm glad." I was worried as you were asking that question because, to be honest, I have no idea who opted out and who didn't. I don't believe that he doesn't know who opted out. I do believe that it's not influencing his opinions on anybody.
Okay, fair enough. I'm thinking there were some Gamecock fans that were cringing hearing that from Marcus Satterfield about the personnel and that the previous staff did a good job. Because that's another part of the balancing act that this new coaching staff has to do, in my opinion, and Shane Beamer specifically. You don't want to be disrespectful, right? And Shane Beamer's just not a disrespectful guy. He's clearly a respectful guy. He's not going to come in. To me, in going back through the years, Darren Horn came off as disrespectful when he got the Gamecock basketball coaching job, asked his introductory press conference, "Hey, have you reached out to Dave Odom or talked to the previous coach about the guys coming in?" And he just says, "No." That was basically his response. Like, all right, guy. And that kind of summed him and his approach, I think, in the entire job up to me. But maybe I'm taking the wrong approach to this, because I'm thinking of it more as someone different than Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp actually has that reputation at Florida, certainly. Got a lot of the credit for those Jim McElwain teams the years after he left that had a bunch of credit because of all the talent that was there. Maybe as a Gamecock fan, you can kind of compartmentalize Will Muschamp, the coach, and the lack of development there from a head coaching perspective for sure. Defensive perspective, what we saw over the last few years, across the board basically, and then a talent evaluator or recruiter. Maybe it can be that simple in that previous coaching staff just didn't develop guys well enough or put them in the right positions to win. And speaking of the previous coaching staff, Patrick, hearing Marcus Satterfield right there, compared to what we heard from, especially more towards the end when we got to hear from Mike Bobo more, struck me as completely opposite from a tone perspective. Whereas when I heard from Mike Bobo, it was almost certainly more of the crotchety, experienced offensive coordinator as opposed to a new, fresh outlook on things. And I feel like that was Marcus Satterfield, energetic and giving his guys the benefit of the doubt and looking glass half full. I feel a lot of times Mike Bobo was more the glass half empty kind of, yeah, but here's what we need to see more of. Like the original evaluation of Ryan Helinski coming in was pretty astute one. Yeah, he's got to improve fundamentally, and I told him that. And we got to work on the footwork, as opposed to what you hear from Marcus Satterfield giving his evaluation of Luke Doty. Natural thrower of the ball, big brain, can run it. Really excited about what we have to work with. What do you think about the differences in approaching?
I think maybe it's just because he is a new offense coordinator, but I think it's mostly just that he's much more open-minded and willing to be adaptable, whereas Mike Bobo was more, this is how my offense is run, this is how my quarterback plays it. When he drops back, this is how his feet are going to be. He's going to take his snaps under center, and this is how it's going to go. Whereas Satterfield's really willing to work with guys and even apparently listen to their input. Like he's just going to let them sit in on the coaches' meetings and just watch film. And I don't know what the deal is there. I hope they're not just allowing the kids to come in and say, actually, I kind of like this route concept better. We should do this. But I hope it's more just, hey, come take a seat and watch film. This is what we're trying to do. This is what it should look like. I don't know what those meetings are like, but that was pretty shocking to me. But just it shows how willing to adapt and just kind of form this offense around what he's got rather than what his philosophy is overall.
That's a great take on that. Hilarious one. I wanted to make sure everybody heard that specifically so they could be in on what Marcus Satterfield was saying. I want to let you hear it right now as we head to our final break here in hour number 2. We'll discuss it more when we come back. And then Clayton White was asked about this as well, because I think a lot of us that heard it were a little bit taken aback by this approach from Marcus Satterfield, the new offensive coordinator from the Gamecocks. Again, we'll discuss it. Love to hear your thoughts at 803-404-6100. You can call or text here on the early game on 107.5.
Just been really cool to see guys come up here with smiles on their face and sitting in the offices.
Great work, Jed. Feel like it's kind of like Animal House in there to a certain degree. If it works, it'll be the new way to do things, right? If not, not enough discipline. Got to have defined lines between coaches and players.
I mean, yeah, you can't be taking input from college kids.
Are you kidding me? I love it.
That's like started the whole Russell Wilson out of Seattle problem because he tried to go into a meeting and email said, "Yeah, we're good here, Russ. You go ahead and take a hike."
Well, I get it from the college perspective, but in the NFL, man, you're talking to your franchise quarterback. Come on.
Yeah, he should have a say. But that's what I'm saying. Like even Russell Wilson, who's been a Pro Bowler for years and carried a team, doesn't have a chance to give his input on the offense. But the 18 and 19-year-olds in South Carolina do.
Good, I love it.
Just different.
To me, that's more of, hey, let us show you exactly how we're doing things. We'll talk about it on the show, but I like it.
Yeah, depending on to what extent.
Right. Interesting takes on the text line here.
You're gonna see.
I love
Bill
your boy
on-
Patrick on the text line. Sorry, Jim?
No, I was just gonna say, looking at hearing Bill talk about AAA and what the temperatures are, and he's gonna be bundled up and whining come Thursday and Friday. Good grief, we could have a freeze like overnight into Friday.
What?
So he's gonna just be whimpering and whining.
Oh, remind me, I need to talk to you about that offline as well, weather. Remind me when we get done.
Okay.
And I thought we were in spring firmly now. You're telling me we're not, huh? Got one lapse.
Could
It
have
was
a
very
freeze
cold this morning.
Friday and Saturday. Yeah, I mean it's 43. That's cool for now.
Sure. Yeah, I have worn shorts, I think, twice here in the last couple of weeks in the garage. Been fine. But today, back in the hoodie and sweatpants.
Yep. So
Tough
weird.
getting dressed up for work, man.
I know.
Woe is me. You're like Bill trying to fight the Lake Murray sun. Somehow getting through it in his eyes.
He battles, man.
He's a battler.
All right.
Anthony, the 49ers fan. Anthony, I hope they don't take Mac Jones. I think they're going to take Mac Jones, though. It'll be nuts to trade 3 first-round picks for Mac Jones.
It's almost like, the Bears are somehow involved in this.
Trading up from the pick you were already at to get Mr. Trubisky. You didn't need to.
What was that, Patrick? You good?
It's like the Bears trading up from one spot to get Trubisky when they could have just stayed and had him.
Guys are up.
Hey, if you've ever wanted to grill Bill, now's your chance officially. 1075thegame.com. You can go to our contest tab there. Grill Bill starts this Monday. You can enter right now. Throw in your possible questions. It can be on any specific subject. We won't let Bill know what we're going to ask him about, what you're going to ask him about when you join us on Monday morning. When you do that, the reason to do that is not just to make Bill more uncomfortable or make our radio show more awkward than usual, but you actually get entered into a chance to win a Camp Chef pellet grill worth more than $1,000. That grand prize will be drawn from our qualifiers here the next few weeks in our Grill Bill contest, brought to you by the South Carolina Pork Board, its member farmers, IGA Food Stores, and Camp Chef. Grill Bill, 1075thegame.com. Starts Monday morning when Bill will be back, taking the day off today. Patrick Corrett, more than filling in for Bill today, bringing his own spin on things. And Patrick, what we just heard from Marcus Satterfield right before the break there, the offensive coordinator from Carolina, saying bringing players into the meeting room, you are not a fan of. I love it, especially this time of year. If it's during the season you're talking about this thing and you're game planning, then we got problems.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
We're talking about spring. We're talking about just getting to know guys. You showed them how you watch things. They can see more of what the coaches do and appreciate probably their vast knowledge in several different ways. And then it's all part of the feeling out process to me. And I love decision makers who bring more input in, bring more people in. To me, that's a sign of security, as opposed to, I think, what you really, the main criticism for Will Muschamp is you're going to do it my way. I'm smarter than you. I know what I'm doing. I'm the guy who got this job because of my ability to evaluate, and it's going to be this way. I think this is a completely kind of new, refreshing approach, and one that I appreciate more than the other way.
I appreciate it for the extent of, hey, we're watching film. I want you to see what I see when I watch the film. I think it's also nice because you can tell who cares and who's putting in the most work, because if they're not coming to the staff meetings to talk to you, or if they are coming to the staff meetings to talk to you, you know that they're hungry for knowledge and really want to know. But I don't, particularly, I guess, on this team where there's not a ton of experience, I don't want them coming in and giving input on the scheme or saying, hey, I don't like the way we run this. I mean, if there's something that like Luke Doty is legitimately uncomfortable, if he says, something about this play, I'm uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable with this read or whatever. I don't know the details, but I'm okay with that. I just don't want them coming in saying, hey, I think we should just have more 4 verts in the playbook and so-and-so should be running a go ball and I just want to throw it deep. Like, we don't need any of that. We don't need kids misunderstanding who's actually in charge here. But sure, if you just want them to know what you're thinking and be on the same page, open door policy. Love it.
I can't help but go to my personal experience with this, playing with the 8 and 6 years old. They have a buddy we played football with the other day. So it was my 8-year-old. He wanted to play all 3 of the other kids, 3 against 1. All right. So we get the 3 kids in the huddle, and one of my kids' friends every time, throw me the ball. Throw me the ball. I was like, hey, man, you know you say this every time, right? And unfortunately, he was a kid who couldn't catch the ball. The worst. Hour 3 coming up. Poor kid. Then I was trying not to hit him in the face. That's the trick on that one.
There's an art form to get enough air under it and so it's soft enough so that
and just right here instead of right here.
In the face, so that if he misses, it doesn't hit him in
Right
the face.
here. I try to go to the side more than I try to go down because that's a tough one.
Boil fire.
Especially when you can catch it here and still knock it up to your nose. I did pound my 8-year-old in the chest pretty good, though, on a drop down and zing one to him and almost broke him in half.
That's how they learn, man. Toughen them up. Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, except my 8-year-old is the one that'll never admit he's hurt. We're fine. Like, oh, sorry, man.
The trail of blood, you know.
Right.
Are you okay?
Rondale Moore, Chris is talking about where you got him rated, man.
Well, I love Rondale Moore. He measured very short, and that will probably ensure that he won't be a first-round pick, in which case I love him even more. He'll be awesome. He is dynamic, to say the least. You can hand him the ball. You can do anything with him. He is amazing.
He single-handedly beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So you think he's a day 2 guy?
Yeah, he'll be a day 2 guy. It's like there's such a crazy tier of those short guys that are just so good with the ball in their hands, like Jalen Waddle, Rondale Moore, Kadarius Toney, Tutu Atwell from Louisville, Elijah Moore from Ole Miss. He's probably more of a pure route running. He's better at running routes than all those guys. Jalen Darden from North Texas. There's a lot of them that are just super dynamic with the ball. But like Rondale and Kadarius Toney, they don't really run normal routes. Like they kind of just are schemed the ball in space, which will be much harder to do at the NFL level. So we will see.
So out of all those guys, you like Moore the best? I mean, So you got Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore. Is that right?
Yeah, Jalen. If we're counting Jalen Waddle, he's the best of all of them for sure.
Right. Let's hear the ranking though. I mean, you got a board. Write them down.
Of all the receivers, or just those guys?
Those guys that you mentioned, rank them and who you would pick.
I can like.
So I'm hearing Waddle 1, Rondale Moore 2. Is that right?
Yeah, I wouldn't put Devontae Smith in that category. I think he's more of like a technician. So I would put Jalen Waddle 1, Rondale Moore 2, Kadarius Toney 3, Elijah Moore 4, Tutu Atwell 5, Jalen Darden 6.
I think Elijah Moore over Kadarius Toney is the only place I disagree with you there. I mean,
Kadarius Toney might be the hardest person to tackle of all the wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, Gamecock fans know that full well. But to me, this is a like Percy Harvin versus DK Metcalf kind of deal. I give Ole Miss guys more credit than I give Florida guys projecting in the NFL.
Yeah.
Who's the best receiver to come out of Florida as far as NFL career-wise? I don't think there are a bunch of them, are there? Jacquez Green, Ike Hilliard back in the day, they were never in the NFL what they were in college.
There have to be good ones, right?
Chris Doring never did anything in the NFL. Great college receiver. Van Jefferson didn't have much of a start there, or he hasn't had much of an NFL career, has he? Is he?
No, I mean it was his rookie year last year. He'll probably turn into something. I think there was enough to show you that he'll be in the league for a little while.
Right. Well, I feel like that's what those Florida receivers have been. Serviceable, decent players, but just never stars. Like Percy Harvin is probably maybe the best of the bunch. And it wasn't
really bad. I guess so. They've had tight ends. Aaron Hernandez and Jordan Reed.
I'll give you, they had something.
I can't go back and tell you the players from 30 and 40 years ago where they went to college, so I can't be good at that game. I can do the last 10 years.
Well, that's why you got an old guy like me here.
I would have just assumed that Florida had some great receivers back in the day.
They did in college. Just never all pros, really. I don't think in the next level. I mean, they're kind of almost the opposite of South Carolina receivers, I feel like.
Yeah.
Really Sharp and Robert Brooks dominated the NFL and didn't. I mean, they were really good in college too, but maybe it's just the fact that the teams just weren't what Florida was back in the day.
Well, they'll have 3 pass catchers drafted this year with Pitts, Tony, and Trevon Grimes.
All right.
Justin Shorter, the Penn State transfer, was the number 1 wide receiver in the country, I'm pretty sure, when he was coming out of high school. Didn't do much last year, but.
Yeah, it's true, Craig.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
And Trey mentioned Pitts at 3 is a solid take. That's why these 3, Pitts, Sewell, Chase, that's, I think, the reason that Miami traded back up to 6. Because those 3 are in a league of their own outside the quarterbacks, I think.
How is Chase in a different league than Devontae Smith?
Because there are 0 question marks about Jamar Chase, and Devontae Smith is going to be his wing.
Not playing for more than a year isn't a question mark?
Being the best receiver in college football as a 19-year-old true sophomore and just absolutely dominating at least 3 NFL corners, highly drafted NFL corners. He ate Trevon Diggs' lunch when they played Alabama, dominated A.J. Terrell in the national championship, and dominated C.J. Henderson against Florida.
2 years ago.
We're in the open.
Yeah, when he was even younger. That's why you feel confident you can do it again.
He's over the hill now. What, is he 21?
20. He's young.
That's right.
Still gets the morning off. Patrick in his brand spanking new shiny whiteboard joining us this morning. Just at a new level of excitement. Jen, you're impressed, aren't you? I can tell.
I was doing backflips earlier over the excitement. I'm just trying to think of how we can make it so it really pops more.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out too.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually see it for yourself on the live video stream, sponsored by Buford Lending, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, up and rolling on the station Twitter handle as well, at 1075 The Game.
I think he needs multiple camera views.
Yeah, it's tough, man, the whole video thing. We're working on it. We're working on it. We talked a lot about multiple topics. We just got into it on the live stream during the break about Rondale Moore was the question, I think, by someone on the live chat there, the Purdue speedster who Chris says is the next Tyreek Hill. I think it's a really good comparison. Patrick thinks that because what did he weigh in at? Or measure?
Just 5'7", yeah, 5'7" flat.
You think that'll keep him out of the first round?
I think he was right there on the borderline. Like he probably could have gone at the end of the first round, but the size was a bit of an issue, even though he tested ridiculous. He's just an unreal athlete, and he's strong. He's
But as you said, there are a lot of those types of guys in this draft, more so than usual, right? Because you kept going down the list, and I was thinking, all right, Kadarius Toney, I'll give you at Florida. I can see that. To me, Jalen Waddle, I don't quite put in that category, but I understand why you do. He certainly is. And Elijah Moore, to me, more of a Steve Smith-like wide receiver as opposed to more of a gimmicky type guy. But I understand why he's in the group and not very tall. Who else did you throw in there? A guy from Louisville?
Yeah, I mean, they're not all necessarily the same player. They're just all guys that their biggest negative or mark against them, or for at least their draft position, is going to be their size. And they're all really fast. Tutu Atwell is the one from Louisville. He is super small. I mean, he's 165 pounds. He's even smaller than Devonta Smith. And Jalen Darden from North Texas is just rubbery. Like, some guys just move different. Like, he's one of those guys. It's just his joints are like rubber bands. He just shoots. Like, he could be standing still. I don't even know how to describe it. Just be standing still, and 0 to 100 is just outrageous.
So rubbery is a compliment at this point in the NFL.
Yeah, like, you know how like Alvin Kamara is one of those guys that just kind of finds a way to just angle his body and just slide through tackles and things like that's how I feel like Kadarius Toney is too. Like, guys that just, I don't know, they just understand leverage or whatever it is, and they just are so balanced. It's unbelievable. They just can't get tackled.
Yeah,
and then some guys are just super fast. Like Tutu Atwell is just outrageously fast. If you watch him play or watch his highlights, you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is the fastest player I've ever seen.
Love the new board, Patrick Hope says on the YouTube live stream. Glad you tried to make the writing bigger. Still tough to see, though, LOL. Yeah, we're still working on how we're going to position the actual writing on the board, where Patrick right now has 1 through 6 up in his NFL draft. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Kyle Pitts at number 3, Penei Sewell at 4, the lineman out of Oregon, Jamar Chase, the LSU opted out wide receiver at 5, and then you got Jalen Waddle, the Alabama receiver, at 6. So do you think this is how it's going to go, or are you telling me this is your big board, this is the kind of the best available deal like Mel Kiper Jr.?
Yeah, best available type deal, because it sounds like the 49ers, we'll see. I bet you the hype is going to be crazy today, because Alabama Pro Day number 2 is today. They've already had a Pro Day. We talked about it last week when Najee Harris-Joe from Dallas and Devontae Smith didn't do anything, and Mac Jones looked pretty good. And Ohio State Pro Day is also today. So the 49ers traded up to number 3, and a lot of people thought Justin Fields. That's what I thought at first. Then everyone was thinking Trey Lance, and now all the word on the street is that it's Mac Jones. And the whole 49ers front office is going to Alabama Pro Day number 2 today to watch Mac Jones. So I think it'd be ridiculous, but right now all the buzz is that they're going to go Mac Jones at number 3.
Oh, Mark hitting us up on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, 803-404-6100. You do know there's 2 NCAA basketball tournaments going on, right? Mark, please respond where you're from, sir. In South Carolina, it's always football season. We have talked a lot about basketball this morning. Sorry if we're annoying you with the lack of it. But Patrick, I think one of the big parts about the men's side of things is just now how far away these programs are. Gonzaga, who hit us up day earlier, I think, did it. He mentioned he was just complaining about the time of tonight's 10 o'clock game. And Gonzaga's not in that game. They're in the earlier game. But somebody hit us up and just said, I forget, I can't, my apologies for not giving the proper credit. Do we even know that Gonzaga's a school? This is Trey. No one I know anywhere has a connection to Gonzaga. What outside of basketball are they even known for? Are we sure it's even a school? It is in a bit of the middle of nowhere, Spokane, right, in Washington?
Yeah, I thought they were in Seattle, but I was way wrong. It's 4.5 hours from Seattle, and then an hour and a half from Pullman, which is also in the middle of nowhere. So I will never be visiting Gonzaga. I was kind of hoping that it would be close to Seattle, and I could say, oh, maybe one day I'll catch an early season Gonzaga basketball game and go watch a Seahawks game or something like that. No,
That's why they're good at basketball. What else is there to do?
I don't know. Is Gonzaga known to be like a phenomenal basketball environment, or they're just a really good team?
Yeah, they're just a really good team. I think Mark gets all the credit for it, all of it, because before he came along, I don't think it was that. This is just kind of a century version. Yeah, it was just John Stockton. That's the only thing I knew Gonzaga for. Several decades ago, until they started having a bunch of the success they've had.
Adam Morrison too, right? He was the
next guy, and then he was a flop for Charlotte there in the NBA. And the crying game in the NCAA tournament is the one that I watched out and about that really sticks with me. It's one of those social experiences that you never forget from the NCAA tournament perspective. And speaking of that, last night it was Baylor punching its ticket to the Final Four, first time since 1950. Just so deep, so athletic, and they are living up to what they have been, and that's not easy to do in the NCAA tournament. But we've seen 3 of the 4 number 1 seeds get to the Elite Eight. We'll see what happens tonight if Michigan and Gonzaga keep it going. To me, I am pulling for Gonzaga to win this thing because they've been so good, not just this year. And this year they have been that really dominant team and won all these games by double digits, the whole thing. But because of the kind of the culmination here, I feel like they've earned it through the years to get their shot and to get this year's national championship. I mean, Baylor, first Final Four since 1950, tough to argue against them. And then watching Kelvin Sampson and Houston punch their ticket last night, first time since Phi Slamma Jamma that they've been back in the Final Four, 1984. So you can pull for some of those guys. To me, I'll take Gonzaga as kind of the. It's tough to say about a team that's been so dominant this year, but almost the sympathetic vote for me is where I get that. Sympathetic's not the right word in that one.
And super likable, I think. I mean, they're just fun.
The way they play, that they have fun. Yeah.
Jalen Suggs is the superstar, electrifying, freak athlete. Like I was watching his football highlights the other day. He's just a different type of athlete. Mr. Football in the state of Minnesota, Mr. Basketball in the state of Minnesota. Big time recruited both of them, but just going to be number 2 in the draft. And then Corey Kispert, who is a 4-year player and just unlimited range. And Drew Timmy's so fun with the just ridiculous Fu Manchu and the headband and really not emotional, but like kind of looks like he's always having fun, like doing like finger guns and things like that in the middle of like Elite Eight games is hilarious. And then Nembhard, you got to kind of appreciate being the man at Florida and just being willing to say, I'll go be a role player at the best school in the country. And then Jolie Ayi is probably going to be a first round pick now too. They're a fun team. I don't think there's any there's no villainy about them. Like there's nothing not to like really.
As you were saying that, I'm wondering if it was that Duke like in 1986 or maybe before Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley got there and they continued to dominate, because very rarely do we say that about a team that's dominant, right? They're that's super likable, but I'm with you. And maybe it's just the personality that Mark View has, or even from the Gamecock perspective, losing to them in that Final Four in 2017. I don't think there's a lot of ill will built up. Just a really good team, man. And they continue to be a really good team and do it in different kind of ways. They got the Florida transfer and Nembhard, who's kind of, like the 4th best player on the team, somewhere in there. That was a guy that single-handedly dominated Carolina a couple of years ago in Columbia. I remember that. That's kind of an odd addition to their team. But, yeah, I think it might also be, Patrick, is that, from my perspective anyway, and one of the reasons why I appreciate college basketball more than the NBA is that you kind of typically have to check your ego at the door compared to the NBA anyway. Much less one guy is going to dribble and be isolation and he's going to try to put up 45 points on you, and that's how you're going to win. Much more working within an offensive system and being unselfish. And to me, Gonzaga plays unselfish basketball. All those guys that you mentioned are really, really talented, and you feel like could be a face of a program if they went somewhere else and averaged 20 points, 25 points, whatever. But that's not what this is. I think that's, to me, why they're likable, why I'm pulling for them, is how they play basketball as a unit is in my opinion, the way it should be played and what makes me appreciate college basketball.
The ball stays hot. It's always moving with them. That is actually maybe the most fun part about the team is that any one of them could probably, like Jalen Suggs could just isolate on every possession if he wanted to just go to Kentucky or something like that, and he could just put up a million shots a game. But they just keep the ball moving. They really just look like they enjoy playing with each other a lot, which I think rubs off on the viewer. But at the same time, they haven't been challenged or slapped in the face really at all this year. I mean, BYU got up on them in the conference championship game, but they immediately stormed back. They haven't had to deal with the rigors of, I guess, even the Pac-12, I guess, is the best conference in college basketball this year. They haven't had to deal with that type of schedule. So that's why I just really want to see this Baylor-Gonzaga matchup, because Baylor is so tough. Mark Vital, the big man down there, is just so physical. I would love to see him just banging down low with Drew Timme, because Drew Timme is relatively physical, but he's not one of these just like monsters, just jacked, really willing to like throw elbows and get dirty down low. So I want to see that matchup like desperately. I need it.
And your take about them not being smacked in the mouth, I think, has been the traditional knock on Gonzaga, right? The West Coast Conference, not very good. And it's part of probably what's kept them from winning a national title before. But this year's non-conference slate, man.
Kansas early, they handled. Yeah.
By 12. Didn't they play Auburn? I mean, Auburn has had a bunch of talent, absolutely demolished them by 23. West Virginia after that. And then Baylor was supposed to be the next game. And that was the one that got canceled. And then when they came back, they play Iowa, who was ranked number 3 at the time. Handled them by 11 points. A couple of games later, they blow out Virginia, the reigning national champions, by 23. So maybe that's another thing that I appreciate about Gonzaga as well. Seem to kind of welcome all comers in the non-conference schedule. And it will be a really interesting game tonight and possible matchup against Baylor that you're talking about if they move on to the Final Four. That's on the men's side of things. Baylor already there on the men's side of things. It was a busy night for Baylor with the matchup against UConn on the women's side of things. And Raj just hits us up on the YouTube live stream. He says, have y'all heard about this thing called COVID? I just got it about 10 days ago, and it's as crappy as it sounds. Sorry to hear that, Raj. Hope you feel better soon. Then he goes, but it's not as crappy as the no call in the UConn-Baylor game last night. That's one way to put that. And then the way that Gino Auriemma laughed it off in his post game. Ugh, can't stand him or his team. So that's what we're trying to figure out this morning. Is that a legit take that most of you have out there, or is this the anti-UConn women's basketball take? Because for me, I had no problem with the no call. I get it. You could call a foul, but you're fading away at the end of the game. I don't want you to get bailed out. To me, it was not an obvious foul as it was going down. I get it. The defensive players were not straight up the principle of verticality. It wasn't there. It was leaned over a little bit, but you're supposed to lean over and get a hand in there as opposed to swiping down. If they swiped down, it was an easy call. And they would have gone to the line, and who knows how it would have ended. Maybe this ridiculous run of 13 straight Final Fours now for UConn women's basketball would have ended. But I had no problem with the no call at the time. I'm wondering if you guys had the problem with the call because it was UConn or because of the actual play. And then maybe we can't even parse that out because it was UConn women's basketball and everything that's involved with that.
Impossible to separate it. Yeah, and no one can stand Gino Auriemma, right? Is he the villain? Is he a villain? He is, right?
Oh yeah,
like he's
welcomes it
a
too.
man called Brenda Freeze a serpent yesterday. Gino Auriemma is a snake. Like that guy is just the slimiest dude.
What is the perspective that his players have?
I don't know.
They respect. I've never heard anything.
He's the best.
But
he's the best, hands down.
Love him, but he's the best.
Yeah, you don't.
We'll deal with him to be the best.
To me, that's the you would much rather be respected than liked. And he's. I think Coach K is that guy with a much better Q rating, with a much better likability factor. I think that he has. Yeah, I don't know about plummeting. You're a Maryland guy, so from your perspective, he's been that guy for a long, long time. And it's it's easy to dislike him if you're a fan of a school. It's any kind of rival, but ultimately you also have to admit, a lot of respect and Team USA coach and the whole thing. But and then also in the women's thing from Gino Ariema, you have the male-female dynamic, which is another layer of things, right? Because I guess there have been men's coaches, or like Vic Schaefer, obviously the coach for Texas tonight. I'm trying to think of a guy who's kind of almost seen as a father figure, like beloved, as opposed to like the disciplinarian, because I feel like that's the route you have to go if you're a male coach of women's basketball, as opposed to think that's also part of the dynamic with Dawn Staley and her players that has been really interesting to see evolve through the years, how clearly she has her team playing disciplined basketball and is in charge, and there is no doubt there. But there's also an extra layer, I think, of, it's not quite friendship, but it's close to that, I think, between she and her players that I don't know if male coaches can have that in the women's game, because they never been a basketball player. Dawn Staley has been where her players are, and I think there's an extra level of connection, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Very
there.
nurturing. Mm-hmm.
Relatable, and just has been a player like relatively recently. I mean, how old is Juwan Howard? Like, I feel like he is around the same age as Dawn Staley, or like is relatable to his players in the same way that Dawn Staley is to hers. It's not like Frank Martin, because he's so much older and is that sort of father figure type. And I mean, Dawn and Juwan are too, but I'm just thinking of like younger, hipper coaches. Like Juwan Howard was part of the Fab Five movement, which was a huge thing, and then Dawn Staley is like just everything to women's basketball right now. She is just on top of the world.
I mean, was playing in the NBA when she started her coaching career. When she started her coaching career at Temple. It's a really interesting matchup tonight too for Gamecock women's basketball, because it's against a familiar foe in Vic Schaefer, who is the longtime Mississippi State coach. Patrick, they played 15 times, I think, while Vic Schaefer was at Mississippi State and Dawn Staley at Carolina. Out of those 15 times, you want to guess the record that Dawn Staley has against him? Remember, they had really good teams.
Yeah, they did.
Should have won a national championship.
I'll say Dawn took 9.
12-3 is the record right now. So plenty of success for Dawn Staley in this matchup. And clearly on paper, the Gamecocks have the advantage tonight as well, being the number 1 seed going against the number 6 seed. The coaching dynamic there will be something, another extra layer involved. Dawn Staley calling the Elite Eight the toughest game out there. We'll let you hear from one of her players when we come back about tonight's Elite Eight matchup against Texas. Get back into our discussion with Gamecock football, having just recently heard from the new offensive and defensive coordinators yesterday. Patrick Perrette helping to fill in for Bill Gunter this morning. You can find Patrick on Twitter @_Patrick Perrette. I'm at Tim Hill 1075. Jen is at Jen Jensen Morse. 803-404-6100. If you would like to weigh in, you can call or text here on the early game. It's 1075 the game.
1075 the game.
Oh, I'm going to run too, but I can't do it now. Patrick's shedding out on me. Shen's being a professional and doing traffic report. Let's see what you guys saying about Chino. Yeah. He even looks like Thanos. Think I get that one. Is that like I think that's that. No, I don't. Terrible at that stuff. That's Patrick's wheelhouse. I was thinking that's like an ice guy. He's in one of my kids' books there. Let's check him out. Yeah, it's kind of isn't he? Is it ice? No. Man, no.
It's easier than ever. On October 1st, 2021, must have a fly access.
text just got us the autocorrect Yukon with a Y-U-K-O-N. Good stuff. Nice. We got a Jim Druckenmiller reference on the text line. You're still muted, sir.
No zero rest today, or is it 8:40?
8:40.
Oh man, I've been to pee for an hour, but I was just waiting for you to have your zero res spot so I could run out while you were doing it, and it just never hit. I couldn't wait any longer.
Nice. Jen, how much time? I'm guessing we still got a few minutes here. Can I make my run right now is my question.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, you good.
Man, I was really hoping I could have made it and no one would have noticed.
Best timing.
I did need to refill the coffee as well, though.
I'm trying to line up recording for him like tomorrow or Thursday and have him record some generic lives for you for next week.
Oh, Tim?
Yeah.
For zero res? So you just got to play off the computer?
And yeah, and I'll put him, I'll tell you where I put him. I'll put him on the W drive for that Beaufort lending. That way we don't have any misses.
Oh, yeah. Does everybody know that yet? Just Bill and I all next week.
I know. No
Man.
pressure.
People are going to get mad. People always get mad when we do those shows. We get very off topic very quickly.
I'm so shocked.
We've done a lot of those on Heath's show, and people get more irked at Heath's show because it's by far the most sports talky of all the shows. So Heath's listeners are ready for just full breakdowns and everything, and then Bill and I pop on and just annoy the crap out of them.
Yeah, they want X's and O's, black and white. Yep.
Yeah. Jason asking, with the Giants signing Galle, what do you think they do with the 11th pick? I would be curious what Giants fans actually want, because I don't think they're going to go wide receiver at this point. I would be kind of surprised by that. They have a really good 1, 2, 3 kind of weapons there. I kind of think they'll go Rashawn Slater if he's there and just bulk up that offensive line. They signed Adoree Jackson too. The secondary's in good shape. I don't know.
All right, nice work, guys. Thank you. I feel better, Patrick. What about you?
Much better now. Edge. 11's going to be early for Edge this year, Jason. It's a weak class. No, like, nobody that's going to contribute year one at least. Pretty much headlined by just freak athletes that recently started playing football.
So, Jen, I'll come back, read a liner, then we'll do number 9.
Okay.
And speaking of edges, we'll have Clayton White talk about that. He's number 7. We'll pop him up relatively quick.
Okay.
Is it Thanos or Thanos? It's Thanos, right, Patrick?
Thanos, yeah.
So you see Anthony refer to Gino Auriemma as that?
That's Thanos, yeah.
Because he looks like him.
Just sometimes that smug look on his face, you just kind of want to stiff arm him when you walk by,
Yeah.
you know? Is that wrong?
Oh, Jason giving you the shout out, Patrick.
Thank you, Jason. You could trade down and get an edge rusher. Jason Elway, this kid from Penn State, ran sub 4.4 at 250 pounds. One of the most freakish athletes we've ever seen, but he's only been playing football since 2016. That's the kind of stuff we have this year. Or Jalen Phillips, who was an absolute freak show yesterday at Miami Pro Day, but has already retired from football.
It is not good, Kevin. Not good. I think it's like 1-9 or something.
All right, so we're heading back in.
But no one has a good record against Gino Auriemma.
Guys, wrap.
Looking forward to next Monday. We start Grill Bill. It's going to be every Monday for a few weeks. You can go and qualify to win a Camp Chef pellet grill right now, 1075thegame.com. Just throw in a few questions. We will not give Bill the heads up on what those are. We will let you ask them on the air and make it very uncomfortable and hopefully very entertaining. And you can hopefully win that Camp Chef pellet grill in the process. Grill Bill. Sponsored by the South Carolina Pork Board, its member farmers, IGA Food Stores, and Camp Chef. Wanted to let you hear now from Zia Cook ahead of tonight's Elite Eight matchup against Texas, a spot that Zia Cook has kind of seen before, and now it's happening in reality.
I'm very excited. After every game, I'm like, wow, we're going to the next one. We're going to the Elite Eight. We're doing good things. So I'm very excited about it. As a kid, I've always dreamed to be here. And I used to watch these games. So for me to actually be playing in it, it's definitely a blessing. And I'm just ready for the rest of the games to get started.
To me, it's going to be interesting to see, especially for a player like Zia Cook. And this is, again, a relatively young team. The only senior was Lily Grissett, who's not available because of injury. And I think we've seen this Gamecock team make the adjustment a lot like that national championship team did a while back without Elena Coates as she was out injured. But what they do tonight in this Elite Eight game that Dawn Staley calls the most difficult one because it's the last obstacle in front of you to the Final Four. And much like the College World Series where there are 8 teams, I feel like in college basketball, it's get to the Final Four. It's not necessarily win the national championship. The Final Four, the branding there and everything it is, it's that final destination. You make the Final Four, you've made it to the end. And to be this close and to have a young team, if they can handle the moment, because clearly they're the more talented team. They've had the better season. Dawn Staley has a massive edge on Vic Schaefer throughout their matchups in history, 12-3 record when he's been at Mississippi State. He doesn't have as talented a team in this matchup as he's had in years past with those Mississippi State teams. So to me, this is a matter of can South Carolina do what it's done now basically all season long outside of a couple of those matchups with those close games that they ended up losing, the NC State game at home, the UConn game in overtime where Becker gets the benefit of a really good bounce on a 3 that was close to the end of the shot clock, and they ended up pulling that one out. And then the Texas A&M regular season finale where they did not win that SEC regular season championship. But other than that, this team has found ways to win and kind of stepped up in the biggest moments. Can they do it again tonight is my question.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they've played in so many big games already, which is nice that you have a strong schedule because, I mean, like A&M, obviously, North Carolina State. But this is where you miss. Just it's such a shame about last year with Ty Harrison, Kiki Herbert-Harrigan, just leading that team, having played in so many big games throughout their careers, and obviously the national championship as freshmen, and just every single year they were used to it. That they were not at all fazed by the stage. I don't think there's any reason to believe this team is. They're super confident. I mean, Aaliyah Balson just looks like and talks and acts like she's just having fun out there, and it's nothing. Zia Cook, I think, plays with just a ton of confidence, like she expects to be here. So I'm not too worried about the stage, but it's every week you keep moving on, or every round you keep moving on, it's the biggest game you've ever played in your life, and you're always going to be a little concerned how a young team is going to react to that. But and this is where Dawn Staley comes in. Like, she just gives them so much confidence. She's not fazed by anything. She's been here a million times, so you got to feel good about it. I think they're in good hands.
A million times or 5 times. This is the 5th time. So 4
it's
times
every
before.
year. It's every year.
Well, it's not quite the UConn run of 13 straight Final Fours, but this will be possibly the third Final Four for Dawn Staley if the Gamecocks win this game. So she says the Elite Eight game is the hardest game. Her record is 2-2 in the 4 trips in the last 6 seasons here in the Elite Eight. The record all time against Texas from South Carolina perspective, just 1-2. But good news, the one win that the Gamecocks have against Texas in school history came in that national championship run 4 years ago, back in 2017. And again, the record between these two head coaches, Dawn Staley versus Vic Schaefer, when Schaefer was at Mississippi State, 12-3 in favor of Dawn Staley. Who asked you about the edge rusher? We'll switch to football real quick. This coming on the live chat. So Jason wanted to weigh in. And this was because of the Niners. Is that correct? Is he a Niners guy?
He's a Giants fan. New York Football Giants.
Okay. And you mentioned this year's NFL draft. So what is it heavy at? We already talked about all the speedy, shifty receiver guys, but this is a quarterback heavy at the top, right?
Very heavy quarterback, very heavy wide receiver, good offensive line, very weak on the defensive line. A lot of good athletic linebackers. Not top, there's a wide variety of edge rushers, but no truly elite ones. There's no Chase Young or Bosa or Clowney or Myles Garrett or anybody like that we've gotten used to seeing every year.
So edge is kind of a new term in football in general, wouldn't you say, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, that's how you classify kind of pure pass rushers now. It used to be, I guess, defensive tackle or defensive end, but now you've kind of got more specialized guys at this point, I guess you would say.
And edge is now an official position, I guess you could also say, with the Gamecock football, with Clayton White, the new defensive coordinator, taking over. He was talking about that specific position yesterday when meeting with the media.
Coming to the SEC, that was the first thing I had to get used to. The big guys can run. The big guys are also big. So I had to get used to that. But this group here is pretty impressive. I can't compare it to the other SECs that have been up close and up personal. But we have about 4 or 5 guys that are big and can run. Very impressive group. And I don't want to overhype them or anything like that, but they're pretty good. They play well together. They're coached well by Coach Peterson. They loving what's going on right now in the defensive role. And those guys are probably definitely the best group of this defense.
There's a lot there with what I just heard from Clayton White, the new defensive coordinator from Carolina. First of all, you can tell he's new, right? Not afraid to admit it. Saying he's got to get used to it. I would imagine a good problem to have there. So in that way, I don't know if what we just heard in that 35 or so seconds could be more polar opposite than Will Muschamp's approach. A guy who knew the SEC and tons of experience for years and years and years, and tons of experience on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I don't think we ever heard Will Muschamp say, I don't want to overhype things, right? And that's part of the big rift, I think, with he and Gamecock fans, that you did hear some hype and you didn't see it backed up a lot of times. So what do you take from what you heard there, Patrick? I mentioned almost a naivete from Clayton White, or I guess just an unfamiliarity, right, with not having done it at the SEC level and just admitting to not being used to edge rushers who are that big and that physically gifted. To me, from a coaching standpoint, I can't help but be a little skeptical that and hearing that and saying, oh man, so he's in for something new. But at the same time, new is better from a Gamecock defensive standpoint, because what you've seen in the last couple of years just has not been good.
Yeah, I mean, well, you like that he was saying he's very impressed by the group. I don't want to overhype it, but he's clearly very excited. But then he starts it all off with saying, yeah, I didn't realize that all the big guys can run too. So, as excited as he is about this group, he probably now realizes that Tennessee and Missouri and every other school in the SEC has equally as many big guys that are equally as athletic. But there were some interesting things. I was interested to hear, I always like hearing the personnel things and where guys are lining up. I think it's interesting that Brad Johnson is inside linebacker at this point with the new change of scheme, but Tonka Hemingway has also been playing on the edge. that is just – I would like to see them both do a little bit of both. Not Tonka Hemingway playing inside and outside, but I do want to see Brad Johnson on the defensive line because he is like a different element of speed rusher on the edge. So I just always like the options with somebody like an absolute bull like Tonka Hemingway on one side, just pushing the pocket, and then a speed guy like an edge bender like Brad Johnson. I always, whenever I'm hearing the coaches talk, the personnel stuff is always what I'm immediately taking note of.
And so what are you expecting out of this group specifically for Gamecock football? Because one of the things I think is kind of a casualty of what we've seen in the last couple of years in 16 combined losses is that I hear next to no conversation or credit given to JJ Enagbare, who was one of, if not the best pass rusher in the league last year.
And had to make a decision. Like, would have gotten drafted this year.
Especially knowing that his position is not fully stocked going into this NFL draft from a business perspective. Probably was a good move to go to the NFL draft, especially in the middle of a coaching change, and still chose to come back. So what are you expecting from the edges, knowing that he leads the way and knowing that this is kind of uncharted territory from Clayton White's perspective, being a coordinator at the SEC level for the first time?
Well, it's a Muschamp word that I kind of hated when he used it for the secondary, but they're going to be very multiple on the defensive line. I mean, that's where you're going to feel very comfortable. Like, there's a lot of different options of guys you can throw out there. Enagbare and Bird are 3-down players. Like, there's really nothing that they can't do, but you have the ability to put some of these bigger guys out, like a Hemingway, outside when it's clearly running downs, or Brad Johnson can just kind of pin his ears back and get after it when it's clearly a passing down. Like, I hope we see lots of that and lots of creativity because you're going to have to get after them. I mean, we were talking earlier about the talent. The reason there's really not going to be, or not much known talent in the secondary right now, is because you just lost two guys to the NFL and one who was one of the more high priority transfers in the whole country last year, and John Dixon going to Penn State. So it's not like there hasn't been talent there, but it's going to be very reliant on the front seven, or I guess front six and the 4-2 to get home quick and often. And I think Enagbare and Birch are going to be the two, obviously, leaders of that. Enagbare, you got to, as a Gamecock fan, you have to appreciate, because clearly he turned down a lot of money, and he did so to be a leader on a team with a new regime and just kind of steady the ship a little bit. Like, you have to appreciate a guy like that.
Well, I'm guessing the conversation with him from the Gamecock football coaching staff perspective was a lot like the conversation on the offensive side of the ball with Nick Muse, and telling him how he will be utilized and how he can improve his draft stock and professional outlook. And that was certainly enticing enough, as well as the college experience. I got to think that maybe, too, the uniqueness of last season, the lack of fanfare in a literal sense, right? That you didn't get games with a traditional crowd and you didn't have a traditional season. Maybe that was a pull as well for the guys who did decide to stay and to come back. JJ Enagbare, I'm talking about specifically here. I would have to think that would be something you can appeal to from the coaching staff perspective. Just the fact that you get fans at the spring game this year, just the fact that you're getting spring practice at all is an improvement over this time last year. And I think we're all hoping for. We've seen plans kind of all over the place in college football unveiled for full capacity coming in the fall, and I think that's what we're all looking forward to. I'm guessing there was some of that involved in this, and I can see that being a big time attraction for a guy like JJ Enagbare, because maybe that's part of why he didn't get as much credit last year as he did. Also, I think it's obviously the lack of results, the positive results from a win-loss standpoint for the Gamecocks. And you got to think, I did see a win total released, by the way. I forget who put this out. I saw it on social media. You want to guess the number attached to South Carolina? It was all Power 5 programs win projections for 2021. There was a half involved, so you got to give me a half here. What do you think it was?
4.5.
You nailed it. That's
Yeah.
correct, ladies and gentlemen.
Sad, but
That's the national perspective right now. If that group that we just heard Clayton White talk about has a good season, then it's easy to see that number on the over side of things and challenging for bowl eligibility. If that group, even though JJ Enagbare had a good year last year, overall as a group, I think it's fair to say that that group didn't have a good year. A very mediocre at best year. I think they're towards the bottom, if not at the bottom of the SEC in sacks. If that group has a similar year production-wise as last year, I understand why that number nationally is at 4.5, and it will be a challenge to break the over. That group has to lead the way. I think, like you're saying, Patrick, and JJ Enagbare is the guy to do it.
But it has to be complementary football too. I mean, the offense has to be scoring points to put the defense in a position where they can pin their ears back and get to obvious passing downs. If you're always playing from behind and the team's just trying to run out the clock, it's hard to get sacks, and that's what happened way too often last year. Teams just were not threatened and did not feel the need to air it out, and the pass rushers really couldn't eat.
Been fun talking about football after hearing from both coordinators yesterday. Elite 8 game tonight for USC women's basketball. Dawn Staley will have the final word in our final segment when we come back. Dramatic conclusion of the show coming up here on the early game. It's 107.5. Oh, we got a little extra time here. So now you got the zero res break, Patrick. One too late. I'll kick you off. You guys can really check out the starting lineups now. The Dale Murphy one and the Jordan one are my favorites, but they don't stick up. They don't stay up very well. It's annoying. And yesterday, the little guy was wearing me out again, and as I was waddling around, as he was waddling around, and I was right behind him, I was just thinking about the carpets again. I forget what kind of fruit it was that I had to clean up off the carpet yesterday, but that's my job these days. Fortunately, we have some help around our house. It's not just my job to keep the carpets and floors clean. Zero Res been out to my house a couple of different times, done a great job cleaning my carpets. They cleaned an area rug for me. They clean the tiles in both the kitchen and the bathroom, and they do it differently than anybody else. And at my house these days, with that little guy waddling around, it's especially important that Zero Res has a powered water system that has no harsh chemicals involved. We have nothing to worry about at my house. Also, my carpets have stayed cleaner longer because of that powered water system. There's no leftover soapy residue. It cleans and sanitizes better and doesn't attract dirt. That's why the carpets stay cleaner longer at my home. They can for you as well. And if you're in charge of a business right now, you need to know the commercial cleaning division at Zero Res, working day and night, following all those CDC guidelines, making sure everything is clean and sanitized to the best of their ability and the best in the business. Check them out right now online. You can book your appointment at ZeroResColumbia.com. You can give them a call at 803-262-4020. 3 rooms of carpet cleaning for only $119 plus a free hallway. When you mention me, Tim Hill, again, it's ZeroResColumbia.com, 262-4020. It's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
Timothy, you got to expand on that question. That's what I just walked over and put up on my radio, and I heard you. So at least on the radio dial, we're fine.
You tell us, Timothy, what is going on with the station?
I'll check the stream
Stream?
real quick.
Thank you. What is the deal with the station?
I back.
Plus, Macy's
go to the stream too. I don't think there's anything going on with the station.
Thank you, Alan. Timothy, this one might be on you, sir.
Or he's just, what's going on with the station? Who are these guys? Why is Bill not here?
He just wanted to ask what's going on.
Exactly. Why do you guys do what you do?
Anthony with a shot. Well done. I can laugh at that as long as you tell Bill when he comes back.
Yep.
And especially knowing that kind of equals out with Chad's take here. Basically saying, yeah, see ya. You guys will have much more fun next week.
Off the rails.
And we can ask him, Kevin, all you want to. He knows how to do it. He just doesn't do it. I think he likes the attention for not doing it.
I think so.
Is that the same? Because right after that, somebody, KO, made fun of the way he says on.
I know. It must be the same spot, huh? Hope, we don't know. No, it's not planned. Jen would like it. I think Bill's saying he's not coming back. We'll see.
Yeah, Bill does not want to come back.
Oh, Anthony corrected the sorry, not sorry. Well done.
It's still weird
so-
being empty.
Go ahead.
I just said it is still weird for it to be empty here, and even the other stations that we have in the down the hall.
Right.
Seeing them, it's like it's just really weird.
So we're going to come back with Dawn Staley, the one cut we have from her.
Yep.
And Patrick, I want to mention about the baseball game and the basketball game, how it will air tonight. But other than that, it's all you. Alan needs to know about NASCAR yesterday, Jen.
I think it could have been better.
Really?
It was good racing. They got down to where they were, racing more on just dirty pavement by the end of it, But it was fun. I think it's a starting point. I'm glad that they tried to do it, and I don't know if they can. If they'll try to do it again. But I nothing ventured, nothing gained. So it was a fun race to watch, no question. And I did not see Logano winning. Like that surprised me a lot. Bill was in last place, so I consider that a win overall.
So I know our buddy Robert Nelson sent us a picture from there with his buddies.
Yeah, fun.
He said he had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun to see like an overhead shot where you just saw like the dirt rising from from the track. That was pretty fun.
So I'm guessing the rain was kind of the last thing they needed with the dirt there.
Yeah, you need a little bit of water. They would water it, but then and just there was flooding and all that, and no way to drain with the pavement. Right back in.
That is great news, Hope. Something we can all agree on. We're all in agreement. Oh, I'll mention it on the end.
All right, Dawn.
Here, please.
It's difficult. It's going to be a difficult match. And I've always said, because we've been in this position before, the Elite Eight game is the toughest game. The toughest game because that is the threshold that you have to get over to get to the Final Four.
And Texas, the last obstacle, the fifth time Dawn Staley has the Gamecocks in the Elite Eight. They've done it one other time in school history in Susan Walvius era, that is. Dawn Staley 2-2 in those four matchups, looking to go above 500 against Vic Schaefer, who she's coached against 15 times and won 12 of those 15 matchups when he was at Mississippi State. So advantage Staley from a coaching perspective, advantage Gamecocks from a roster and talent and team perspective. We'll see if they can do what they've done basically all year long and answer the call when they're in that favored position. Tonight, it airs right here in its entirety, starting at 6:45 on 107.5 The Game. The exact same air time as Gamecock Baseball, hosting Gardner Webb. That'll start over on our sister station, ESPN 1320 AM. Will be joined in progress after USC women's basketball here on 107.5 The Game. Patrick, excellent job, sir. Feel really good about the addition of the whiteboard. I know you're feeling you got to make the adjustments. It's a great addition.
This is the time to subscribe to the live stream. This would be the time. YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, please. 107.5 The Game.
YouTube page 107.5 The Game. You can search for it. Hashtag subscribe or die.
Oh.
Maybe that's a little too much, Jen. Too serious. Hope's just happy that Bill's finally in last place in the NASCAR race.
Win.
Coach Dawn Staley, and you're listening to the Game Guys, WNKS.
Well done, Hope. I meant to get it in a little bit better.
He's not in last place in the rankings, sadly.
Right.
It's just
in the picks, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry, he's headed that way. We're good.
Right. I tell you what, Reggie is on his heels. 1 point separates them.
Nice. Thank you guys for listening to the live stream there. Spread the word on the YouTube channel if you can.
Spread the word.
You too,
We will see you again tomorrow. Bill will be back, so it'll be complete chaos.